Welcome everybody to the October 14th, 2021 meeting of the Chatham Township Committee. We have just returned from executive session. Our clerk confirmed that adequate notice was given and we had our roll call. And I assume you've noted that Mrs. Abbott is here now on the roll call? Thank you. So I would ask everybody to stand and join me on the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for spacing and for wearing your masks, since we expected more people today and some younger folks. We wanted to make sure that people wearing masks and spaced. As long as you're with family or friends that you know are vaccinated, you're good to stay together, but otherwise we ask you to mind the 6 feet of distancing. Okay, can I get a motion to approve? Actually, I'm going to pause on that. On the agenda, my only change, or not even a change, is to when we have the skate park presentation, rather than wait for the public hearing for residents to ask questions, I'm just going to allow questions at the end of that. It'll just make sense. Is everybody comfortable with that? Yeah? Okay. So that would be the only change. So do I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Great, thank you. We have a couple of proclamations tonight. I'm going to start with October 22nd is Stuttering Awareness Day. Whereas October 22nd, 1998 was designated as International Stuttering Awareness Day to celebrate people who stutter. Stuttering is a complex communication difficulty that affects more than 70 million people worldwide and more than 3 million people in the United States. And whereas stuttering is primarily neurological and or genetic in nature, in which the flow of speech is interrupted by stuttering events such as repetitions, prolongations, or interjections, stuttering is not emotional or psychological, and it is not caused by nervousness or anxiety. Whereas stuttering research has shown that more boys stutter than girls, and that while 75% of children grow out of stuttering by the age of 5, 25% of people who stutter as children do not grow out of it. Whereas people who stutter, PWS, are often teased and frequently experience shame, guilt, and fear of speaking situations, as well as encounter discrimination in employment and other areas because of stuttering misconceptions, myths, and stigmas. Whereas research has shown that the more a person is about their stuttering, the more open a person is about their stuttering, the less severe the stuttering may be. And while there is no cure, speech therapy and support groups have helped to foster ideas of acceptance, management, and a fantastic quality of life. Whereas people who stutter are individuals that lead amazing lives and are just as smart, funny, and extroverted as people who do not stutter. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the Mayor and Township Committee do hereby recognize October 22nd, 2021 as International Stuttering Awareness Day and urge residents to become better educated about stuttering acceptance and to help decrease the stigma of stuttering in the community. I wanted to thank Emily Roots, the speech pathologist, for bringing this important day to our attention. And I wanted to thank the students that are here to accept the proclamation. I'd like to thank you all for your courage in raising awareness and helping others who stutter to know they're not alone. So I don't know if Emily or the kids or family would want to speak, and you can come up. Please, that would be great.
I can take that down right now. Hi, everyone. Thank you. Thank you to the mayor and thank you to the Chatham Township Council for this important proclamation tonight. I am not someone who stutters, so I'm not going to be the voice for the very brave and amazing people here and around New Jersey who do stutter, but I am here as an ally to the stuttering community. And my hopes as a speech pathologist who specializes in stuttering, is that we can all come together as a community to eliminate harmful myths about people who stutter, and instead we can take the time to listen and not interrupt, and encourage our neighbors, friends, colleagues, and loved ones who stutter to be open about their stutter and work towards acceptance and not working towards being fluent. That's not our goal. Those of us who don't stutter take for granted daily tasks like ordering food, introducing ourselves, and asking for directions. While people who stutter have to be brave every day to fight stigma, feelings of shame, like you talked about, and frustration about their speech, when in reality they have absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. And they can teach people like us, people like me, how to be better communicators. So let's keep spreading the message that it is more than okay to stutter, that there is nothing to be ashamed of, and that we will all work hard in Chatham Township and in all of our communities to commit to stigma-free beliefs regarding stuttering and being the best allies that we can to our friends who stutter. So thank you so much, and happy International Stuttering Awareness Day. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you want to come up and accept the proclamation? And do we have Nick Nicolopoulos and David Ciano here as well? Oh, okay, mixed that up. Chris. I wrote Nick down. Okay, because I know Nick from Board of Health. That's why. Yeah, if you want to come down for a photo, that'd be great.
I don't either.
You want to go in the background?
We'll go in the back. Huh? No.
Thank you very much.
Oh, got it.
Thank you for coming in and for doing it.
I don't know what to do. Just, all right. We'll just stand. I don't even care anymore.
Thank you.
No, they're worried because it's children.
Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you. Strap in. Okay. And we have a proclamation for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Whereas while considerable progress has been made in the fight against breast cancer, it remains the most frequently diagnosed type of non-skin cancer, and whereas unfortunately many of us know someone or have family members who have or have had cancer, and whereas thanks to early detection and better treatments, mortality rates for breast cancer have steadily decreased in the last decade, and whereas knowing what may contribute to breast cancer, symptoms, diagnosis, and treatment are important parts of its prevention, and whereas having affordable access to screenings and early detection for all women is an essential component in the fight against breast cancer, and whereas during National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we stand with our mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends when we recognize all who have joined their loved ones in fighting their battle, as well as the advocates, researchers, and healthcare providers whose care and hard work gives hope to those living with breast cancer, and whereas by educating ourselves and supporting innovative research, we will improve the quality of life for all Americans affected by breast cancer and one day defeat this terrible disease. Now, therefore, I, Stacey Ewald, Mayor of the Township of Chatham, recognize October 2021 as National Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I encourage citizens, government agencies, private businesses, nonprofit organizations, the media, and other interested groups to increase awareness of how Americans can fight breast cancer. So, 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and it's not a diagnosis you expect to hear. We all feel like we're younger and more healthy than maybe we are at times, and especially it is a silent attack. So, and I had no symptoms and no, the traditional feel lump or anything like that, and I was very fortunate. I hadn't been to for a mammogram, shame on me, for 5 years. My kids had their annual appointments, my dogs had their annual appointments, but I didn't get myself to my mammogram. So I was very lucky after 5 years we detected it early. So I'm telling you, and I hope you'll tell your friends, notify your parents, your moms, your sisters, your wives, and friends to go ahead. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and sometimes this is all you need for them to actually go out and to make that appointment. So, thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I may, it's also important that what you said is absolutely true, but it's important that older women also get mammograms. My mother was diagnosed with breast cancer at age 83. That was a surprise, but it affects women at every age. So.
Absolutely.
And believe it or not, it does happen to men too. I know a gentleman that had breast cancer, so all people need to be cognizant of cancer screening.
Yes. We're fortunate in this area. We have great facilities. We're very close by, so. Oh, Celeste. All right, we're all going to bark at Celeste to go. Okay, so
Sorry. That was just funny.
next on the agenda, we have the skate park committee is doing a presentation. We can take a couple of minute breather while they set up.
No, we shouldn't. Right. I just want to make sure I can see what she's.
Oh, thank you.
And just do the share screen. Okay. Okay, you should be able to see that on your screens.
Oh, oh wow, even easier. Thank you.
So Emma?
I'll adjust the lights.
I'm just not able to progress. You know, Greg?
I'll get this in.
Otherwise, we're going to be staring at one slide for the entire presentation. Although hopefully you did all receive it. Or
Yes,
if not, we'll get
did
it to
not.
you. Okay, we'll get it to you.
Okay,
We'll
thank
get
you.
it to you. Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Actually, let me click on here. Okay.
Oh, what did you put? Can I use these?
Okay, if you enter key, will advance it.
Uh-huh.
Or the
Okay.
arrows.
Or this one?
We got
Yeah.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Always nice to have technical tech support. Usually that's my kids, but great to have Greg here. So thank you, Mayor Ewald, Chatham Township Committee, Bob Hoffman, and my tech support over here, Greg. My name is Crystal Payone. I'm with the Chatham Skate Park Committee. We're here.
So we can make sure we can hear you on
Sure.
TV.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes. official. So we're here tonight to update you on our progress so far in our efforts to relocate and rebuild the Chatham Skate Park. And this is who I have with me. We are a committee of 4 Chatham residents, Chatham moms. Rachel Nowicki is here, as well as Deb Pettigene. April Kabash, unfortunately, is at home with a last-minute dental emergency and didn't think speaking in front of a public forum would be great for her tonight. But she's one of our 4. And as you can see here, these are our 4 sons, our 4 boys, who are avid skateboarders. And honestly, this is the heart and soul as to why we've been working on this for the last 2 years, putting in time and effort to try to promote this project. Max, Ben, Jack, and Adam. And unfortunately, they are at other activities tonight as well. You know, those Chatham kids, always busy with things. But we also have supporters online, so I just want to thank them who are tuning in and couldn't be here as well. I know it's a big weekend, Cougar weekends. We got a lot going on. And I think, as we said, we'll hold questions till the end. I think it would just help with the flow, and that way, too, would just make efficient use of your time. So we appreciate that. So we are here to ask the Township Committee to help us secure a location for a new skate park. We are also seeking funding from Chatham Township, Chatham Borough, and private sources to fund this project. And you can just see there, that's just a little sample concept design. These are kind of sprinkled throughout the presentation just to give you something, a little image as we talk about skate parks. So like I said, our kids all skateboard. They actually met at a skate park and are friends from that. So we think the benefits of skating are great for the kids, but I want to explain to all of you maybe some of the benefits of skating and skate parks that you might not be aware of, just so you start to share some of our real enthusiasm for this project. Obviously, and when I'm talking about skating, I'm talking about everything with wheels, right? So scooters and roller skates, roller blades, all of that kind of falls under the umbrella. So keep that in your mind as well. It's not just skateboarding. So it gets kids outside. It's a great form of exercise. And not only, you know, getting them outside and exercise, but in an unstructured way. So as I said tonight, we have 2 who are at baseball, 1 who's at soccer, and 1 who's at a drum lesson. So, you know, when you go to a skate park, there's no team, there's no coach, there's no tryouts. It's you just show up, and you can be by yourself, you can be with your friends. It's a really kind of truly unique form of play, in essence. There's also mental health benefits here, so building confidence and self-esteem. In fact, we were just talking to one of the kids who was here for the Stuttering Proclamation, and he was saying, you know, the mom was saying how, you know, her, I think it was her brother, who, you know, it builds this persistence and diligence. Like, they go out there and they work and work and work to try to get a skill or a trick. And when they get that, not only are they filled with that confidence, but everybody in that skate park, it's like fist bumps all around, high fives. So there is a true sense of community built at skate parks, where I think kids are really inclusive of everybody who's there, of all ages. And we've seen that in person from our times just, you know, watching our kids at the skate parks. So we think skating is a great thing for kids, but the question is why do you need a skate park? Can you just, you know, go out and skate in your driveway? And I think this quote by Tony Hawk will kind of really speak to the Township Committee and, you know, you being kind of stewards for our community. Tony Hawk says, skate parks build and sustain healthy communities as a gathering place for dedicated athletic youth. This skate park provides the forum for visitors to meet and share experiences, right? So it's more than just the skating. But for me, as a mom whose kid is flying downstairs and doing ramps, I want a safe place for kids to skate. Like, safety is my number 1 concern. So when there isn't a dedicated place for kids to skate safely, they're going to find other ways to go, right? And that's, busy streets, parking lots, the steps at the library. They will find places to skate, and if we can keep them safe and in a contained area, everybody benefits from that. It's also a local, municipally based gathering. So we think anytime you can kind of bring together people in the community, that's good for everybody and not just the kids at the park, right? Just creating that community. I said reduce illicit behavior. Obviously, if they're at the park working on a skill, they're not other places, maybe getting into trouble. And then the last point here, I also think is a really important one for us to consider, in that skate parks can provide a positive economic impact by making use of underutilized recreational spaces and activity centers. So it's a really good way if you want to revitalize, say, an area that's not really being used, right? You start to draw kids there and families, and maybe, there's other things around it that families can also enjoy and use. Like we have other spaces like that in Chatham where you have baseball fields and playgrounds, basketball courts, right? It's kind of a place for everybody, and we feel like Chatham could really benefit from that. In fact, my next slide then is, okay, follow me on my train of thought. We've talked about how I think skating is great for kids. Skate parks are important to keep them safe, but why do we need one here in Chatham? The real question. So our old skate park, which was on Shunpike, it really was a thriving part of the community. On a day like today, sunny and 70, it would be packed. My son would go there, he would meet up with friends, I'd drop him off, I'd go to ShopRite, I'd come back. It was a really, it's a really missed part of our recreational facilities. And, the second point here, there are no other public skate parks in Morris County. And I was really surprised to learn this until we started doing some more work with this project. But I have to say, since the Chatham Skate Park has closed down, I have lived this and experienced this, because there's not many places to go nearby, and you end up, we've driven between us all over New Jersey, which has been an adventure, but we prefer to be here, where you kind of organically, see your friends, or, I'll talk to the other moms, that kind of thing. Skating and scootering are popular with Chatham families. We opened up an online petition earlier this year, and just between the four of us kind of sending out to our friends in town and friends of friends, we got close to 900 signatures just in a matter of a couple of days. We also set up an informational booth at Fishwack Festival just a couple weeks ago. And there we got about 100 signatures, not just of people who are, yes, we support a skate park, but here's my contact information, and if you need my help, let me know. So people really willing to kind of back the project. So I think that's important as well, that we have reached out to our community. And finally, a skate park would be a really unique recreational facility. So, as I've kind of mentioned, our kids are involved in a lot of other sports. We've made use of the fields, the playgrounds when they were younger, and there's really a place for everybody, but there's not a skate park. And I think it would be a really nice piece of the recreational puzzle, just to kind of fit in with what we have, so not taking away from any of our facilities, because those are used and loved, but to create just another part of that. All right, so finally, I just want to paint kind of a picture for you about what a skate park looks like, who's there. If you've never been involved or had kids who are skating or scootering, you just might not know, what happens at a skate park. So this will give you a little idea of what skateboarding really is about. And I have to say, my favorite picture probably of this whole slideshow that we put together is the one in the middle here. This little munchkin, he's, I don't know, maybe 3. He's fully decked head to toe in his skate gear, about to fearlessly go down or drop into this skate bowl. But it's for all ages. So you will find at skate parks not only, 3-year-olds, you'll find high schoolers, and somehow they seamlessly all get along, and you've got mentorships going on. This other picture, if you can see an older person helping, parents will show up with their kids. My son learned to skate at the Chatham Skate Park. There's somebody local who gives lessons, competed in a competition there. There's, again, all ages who are there. And then skating and scootering really are mainstream, right? And if you have kids, school-age kids, maybe they don't have a skateboard, but I bet you they have a scooter, right? And this really is, like, the skate parks draw the kids with the scooters as well, even as young as that little guy there. And as you probably saw, skateboarding is now an Olympic event, making its debut this summer at the Olympics. Hugely popular among fans. Obviously, we were tuned in at my house watching the competitions, but I think that kind of interest is just going to continue to grow. And again, thinking of it as a sport, as it truly is. And then finally, skating is local but open and inclusive. And I just wanted to share with you here that think of it a little bit like a municipal park or a playground, where if you go, probably 9 times out of 10, if I went to the skate park, I would see another Chatham family or someone I knew. Just by the fact that a skate park was in Chatham, it's close by for everybody from Chatham to use. So there's a lot of use by residents. That said, it's open for public use. And, my son met friends from other neighboring towns, Madison and Summit would be open to use it. But I think that's actually a good thing. I think it's great for them to kind of make more connections. And of the 17 years that skate park was there, it was never a center or an attraction for, kids with maybe not so good intentions, say errant behavior, drugs, alcohol, crime. It just wasn't an issue there, any more so than, say, another public field in Chatham. So what I saw was, a wide range of ages getting along and honestly just having fun and enjoying their time at the skate park. So just to, that's the picture to have in your head, kind of a playground, but a little more specialized. So I'm going to have Rachel come up. We're going to get into a little bit more about just what we've been working on over the past couple of years, and she'll talk about location, how we've kind of narrowed that down, and then Deb's going to come up and talk numbers, but I'll let Rachel jump in here. Yep, so here I'll show you. So you can't see it on here, it's under the way, so you'll see it only up there, but you'll click this to move forward. Okay.
I should preface this by saying I'm really blind. So bear with me. So I'm Rachel. I'm Rachel Nowickas, and I have an 8th grade son who is an avid skateboarder. But tonight he is at baseball with Crystal's son. So just to give you a little background on the history of how long we've been pursuing this, we gave you a little timeline here of when we started this process, which was back in January of 2000. And our first meeting was actually November of 2019. And we got together and, as a group and tried to form this committee and went through and met with Tracy Ness when she was the mayor, and had some, preliminary discussions. And just behind the scenes, we reached out to do some research on other, what is a skate park developer, who's local, who can we find, and we actually came across Spawn Ranch, which is the developer that we've been working with for the last couple of years. And he came out to New Jersey right before COVID shut everything down, and we had a great meeting with him. And we've been working with him ever since, and he's been a major resource for us. COVID did shut things down for a little while, but we kept things going behind the scenes, just doing our own research, kind of phone calls and so forth, and making as many presentations as we can. We've talked to a lot of people on the rec committee, the joint recreational committee, engineers from Borough and Chatham Township. So it's been an ongoing process. You know, like I said, it's really been almost 2 years in the making. We feel like we're finally at a point where, you know, we're here tonight, which is huge. So we're making progress. Okay. So one of the things that we, over the course of the last 2 years, have vetted out are the many possible locations in Chatham Township, Chatham Borough, other surrounding areas. You know, when I first started talking with Tracy Ness, you know, it came up like, where else could we build this? Is there Geralda Farms? Is that a possibility? Or is there land in Morris County? Or is there any other location that we can use? And between the township and the borough, we kind of, you know, there was all these issues, whether it's wetlands, whether it's the 100-year flood zone, whether that location was preserved for something else, or there was just always something that, you know, kind of held it back from being a potential possibility for us. And I think it was actually you, Bob, that, you know, we kind of came together. It was like Mountain View. This was it. It was like this, you know, epiphany, like, why don't we look here? It's land, it's available, it's a good location. One of the things about a skate park is you really don't want it off the beaten track. You want it in a location where there is some activity, you know, like a playground. You have to think of it like a playground. You wouldn't drop your kids at a playground that you couldn't, you know, drive by and see someone, or there wasn't some other activity. So this became a very viable option for us. And so we met here in June with our skate park developer that we've been working with, and he's been on the scenes for all of the other locations that we vetted out. And again, he gave us his point of view as to what would work, what wouldn't work. And throughout the process of finding something, you know, there are certain criteria that we try to look at, you know, accessibility, visibility, you know, what's already there, what needs to change, how much we have to do to make it into a skate park. So there's a lot that goes into the location selection. These are some of the sites that we have already vetted out, both borough and township. In our discussions with the mayor of the borough, we, you know, looked at some opportunities there, and nothing was a really good solution. And then, you know, the location here at the Mountain View was proposed, and that's what we're presenting tonight. So what's great about this location is it is underutilized, if you will. Like, if you think of all the locations that we looked at, they were already maxed out on what we could do. Wetlands is a major issue in Chatham Township. And so, you know, every time we came up with a good location, it was like, oh, the wetlands. So the wetlands here are not an issue for us for where we want to build, so that's positive. There is easy access, you know, as far as driving in, driving out. It's still in Chatham. There's parking. There's other things going on here. You know, there's another gymnasium. There's a playground. There's a ball field. And I know there's been talk of making those bigger and better so that there are more people here, and I think that would be great. So this is kind of where we're honing in on for this. So this is just a kind of concept plan, if you will, to show you. This is the, you know, bird's eye view of the location where the municipal building is. The blue location on the slide where it says proposed skate park area, I call it the grassy knoll. It's over here to the side of the building. It kind of starts on the hill and works its way down. We're proposing that it should be about 10,000 square feet, and the reason we came up with that number is because that's what the existing skate park was. So it's not it has to be 10,000 square feet. It could be 7,500 square feet. It could be bigger. You know, we're just holding that number as that's kind of what we're looking at as a comparison to what we had. It doesn't touch the existing playground. It doesn't impact the existing ball field. That's I think what we would call a pee-wee baseball field, so it's t-ball. These kids are not hitting, no impact of that, of fly balls going into the skate park. So location-wise, it's great. From a construction standpoint, as far as building a skate park, it's got its challenges. It's on a hill, right? It's grass, so there's definitely going to be a little bit more work to go into it. And to quote the skate park developer, he said, we design with a site in mind, and everything has its constraints, but, we look at those as opportunities. So, some people might look at this and say, oh, it's never going to work, and they look at this and go, oh, look what we can do here, right? And that's really the vision that we want. So the skate park developer, Spawn Ranch, he is a gentleman from New Jersey. This is where he grew up. They have designed and developed over 20 skate parks in New Jersey alone. He is constantly all over the United States building and developing skate parks. He's been working pro bono for us this entire time, and he has been at our fingertips for any questions, resources, help, anything that he can do. He's been amazing. So he's the one that came up with like this kind of location and what he could do in there. So this is just a concept of what, a new skate park would look like today. The old one was a wood skate park. This would not be. This would be concrete. It's built totally differently. It's got very little maintenance to it, unlike the old one that had a long-term, every year maintenance to it. This doesn't. It lasts a lot longer, and you can really create some fun, skate bowls, ramps, and everything. So this is just a concept of what it would look like. We haven't obviously gotten into that detail, but just another sample concept design. One of the things that came up over the course of the last couple of years was, and this is something that Spawn Ranch does, is they have designed skate parks that have become community centers. So they double for, let's say you wanted to have a music program in the summer, and you had a band playing, or you had something happening, this could double as that. So they've done a lot of these. They did one down in New Jersey. Is it Neptune? The one that's built on the church? Elizabeth. And it doubles as, they have Sunday services there. And so what you see as a bench or a pew, the skateboarders see as just a ramp or another jump, or, so it's all how you look at things. It really is the vision of what you see. But to that point, this skate park could also serve as something like that: outdoor concerts, outdoor presentations, whatever it may be. I know a couple years ago during COVID, when we couldn't have or actually it was, I think before COVID, the auditorium was under construction, and we had the chorus for the 4th and 5th grade outside. Great location. You could do that here, right? You could kind of build it up, and so it could double as something else for the community. And these are just some samples of that. And then another one, just showing, this is obviously a very large one. The other thing I want to note is that he has done several skate parks on wetlands, like literally over wetlands. So wetlands are not even an issue for him. So just more pictures of our kids, and I think I'm going to turn it over to Deb now. But I'll just pass this around. This is his brochure. If you guys want to take a quick look at this, there's some pictures that we had up here, but just if you guys have never seen this. You know which button to press? Okay. Big right arrow.
Hi, I'm Deb Hedegene, and as you heard, my son skates a lot. That's how he met Ben and Jack, and that's how I got into this. So, to quote Helen Keller, alone we can do so little, together we can do so much. So we're really looking at a partnership between our group, Chatham Township, Chatham Borough, and a 501c3 partner. It's a community partnership. This was modeled on what the Chatham Athletic Foundation had done in the past, where they worked to improve the recreational capacities of the town by developing the turf fields and also installing lights at Nash Field. And the costs would be shared, and the costs would include the initial design, the build, as well as ongoing maintenance. And we're looking, as Rachel said, at a smooth concrete surface, different from what was the skate park previously. So the projected cost for the skate park is $600,000, with a distribution of our group contributing $300,000 and the township and the borough $150,000 each. And just to go over in the pie chart, what really the bulk of the money would go to the concrete. Concrete is expensive. The concrete that is used is a little more specialized in the way that, in what they design. I believe it's shotcrete, so they use that sometimes to fabricate pools. It's a little more used to build and mold into forms. Then what comes next is the earthwork, so the site work. And for our site, we do have a little bit of site work to do, considering that it is grass and it is on a hill. And then just general construction and actual steel fabrication, because when they create the shape of the parks and the forms and the molds, some of that has to be steel reinforcement. And just in addition to our group, the relocation project funding, we'd also fund marketing, a fiscal sponsorship fee, and any other unexpected expenses. All the money that we would raise would go directly to the skate park. Now, how would we raise our money? We're looking at going out and asking local individuals and businesses for money, goods, and services. One of the best ways is to ask for goods or services and in-kind donations, where maybe we can ask a local landscaper to provide landscaping, a lumber yard to provide some lumber for the forms, a concrete, if we know or can reach out to organizations that have equipment, heavy equipment, those things we can ask for, and that really cuts down on the cost. We'd also do several local fundraising events, buy a brick, a run, walk, roll, those kinds of things. Also looking at corporate sponsors, something like TD Bank, grant applications, and pledges. So just quickly, grant applications, something like Kirby or Hyde and Watson, they're private foundations, or some civic organizations like the Rotary Club, and like I said, corporate sponsors like Bank of America. We want to recognize our donors, and by providing them, we'd have a system of knowing who donated, how much. We'd want to do some sort of event to celebrate them. Another way to show that we're really being supported by our donors and we are supporting them is by including their name, maybe in the entryway to the park, maybe on donor bricks, things like that. Okay, let's talk a little bit about how we'd like to have help with our fundraising initiative. That is through a fiscal partnership where we're reaching out to an organization that has a 501c3. And the reason we would do that is a lot of the grants are privately funded and municipalities aren't allowed to reach out for privately funded grants. It also is a very good way for small groups and small projects to be privately funded. Something where the 501c3 oversees the management of the project, where we do the legwork to apply for the grants and reach out, but they oversee it and manage it. So we are a project under their umbrella. An example of this is the YMCA oversees right now, write it down so I can forget, they're a fiscal agent for the Madison Chatham Coalition. And that addresses substance abuse and mental health. So it's just a good example. And Crystal, if you'd like to come back up, if you don't mind. I'm going to turn it over to Crystal. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so, let me go back. Yes, next steps. All right, so hopefully you've gotten a little flavor about, why we think a skate park would be a really great addition to Chatham's recreational facilities. We gave you lots of detail. Again, you can go through that in even more detail if you have questions about the specific site location that has been recommended after many conversations, some really important input from Bob Hoffman, our administrator, who's just been essential in his expertise in helping us kind of narrow it down to this one spot, and we think it's a pretty good one. And then the funding, obviously that's a really big piece of it. It's going to be a lot of work on our end, but we're hoping through that umbrella organization that we'll have access to some private grants and funds, and then input from the two town governments. So, but before we can do any of that, we need the site approved as kind of the next step. And so that was really our purpose today, was to inform you kind of due diligence, of answering any questions to try to get this next step. And official approval, whether it's through resolution. I look to Stacy for guidance here and your expertise as members of the committee. As to how we proceed along those lines. We are presenting to the Chatham Borough Council, because as you see, they will be a partner in this project on that financial side of it. And then obviously it's, fundraising and moving forward from there, or whatever other steps we're kind of guided to from your side of things. Rough timeline, obviously we've been at this for a while, but we're following the steps, and we understand that's important. Obviously, we'd love to get it done as soon as we can. We've been talking to Bob a little bit about budgets and, how the steps work for that as well. But, we're looking to move forward and looking for your help. So we'll open it up for questions, discussion, or, any other added input from those who've kind of been involved in the conversation so far. Anybody online, join us up on Facebook. We are Chatham Skate Park Relocation. We're always looking for more help and support. Any grant writers out there? Look me up. But thank you very much. Obviously, these are our emails. You are more than welcome to email us questions or reach out in any other way. But we appreciate your time this evening. It's really important to us, and we've kind of conveyed that to you, that it would be an important next step for the township as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you. No, that was a really great presentation, very thorough. I appreciate that.
Good.
Great job.
Do we move this over here?
Let
me take this off.
you want to dismantle
Tech
first?
support.
No?
Thanks, Greg. Do you want me to take part?
I know the former Mayor Ness had gotten involved in the project because she was part of the original committee 17 years prior who put the first skate park in. So, so I know she kind of helped guide some of your process and give some input in terms of what worked for them. Did you want to say something, Mr. Howard?
Sure, thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, the concept of a skate park is an important discussion for the township as well as for the borough. I believe that when you have, when you're proposing a recreation asset, you should propose it so that it's complementary to what's already there and it's something that you can build on. So you want to have a complementary asset, you don't want to have something that's in conflict. The skate park committee has looked, they didn't do themselves justice when they talked about the different locations and where they were looking and some of the problems. By process of elimination, they probably looked at 13 to 15 different sites. But when you looked and you said you need parking, you need to be besides the parking, you need to be able to have an area that's accessible for all ages and that has other assets that siblings can use or parents can use. So almost by process of elimination, the Mountain View site over here was the logical site to take a long and harder look at. And I believe that's what the committee is doing tonight, is they want to put this out. There should be a period where people can think about it and reflect, you know, maybe 30 days or something like that, because they do have to go to the borough to take a look, and then see, you know, see if this particular location makes sense. On paper, it's the only location that does make sense because of the need for parking, the need to not be in a wetlands area, and the fact that if it's here, it becomes a complementary use to other things that are here on our 11-acre campus. And there's a plan going forward to make better use of this of the recreation assets here. So that's part of it. I think that going forward, if there is a commitment for a location, the next thing that has to happen is fundraising. And that fundraising has to start with the skate park committee. They need to raise money before the township would wind up committing money. So I saw the 2022. I think that's optimistic.
We had to try.
Yes. During our discussions over the summer, I had it pushed out further, but you know, there needs to be some more discussion so that the township committee can make an objective decision. So, but I just wanted to compliment you on the work that you had done, and you know, now it's time to reflect and make sure that this is the right location for the right reasons.
Yeah, and I definitely appreciate the committee taking up the mantle, because I was here, you know, way back when there were the discussions about, you know, development at Dixie-Dale and then the development of the related affordable housing at the skate park, and the sentiment from the committee and the community at the time. Well, the committee, the administrator at the time, and the community was that they, you know, wanted to find a new location. They committed to finding a new location and to putting the skate park somewhere else. So, but somebody had to do the work, and I appreciate that you guys stepped up to do that work. And it was really a great, very thorough presentation. I'll kick it back to the committee. Yeah, does the committee have questions?
No, I just wanted to say that, so there was like, this is the third wave of the skate park, because I remember a presentation when my kids were little on the origination of the skate park. And again, it was a group of moms who were trying to find a facility for their children locally to participate in this growing sport. And then, when I think it was 2013, there was a group that was renovating the skate park with the old wooden structure with the skate light surface that had worn out. And So it was renovated, and the bottom floor also, which is, I guess was cement, was, and had a special surface on it, was renovated. So there's always, in 17 years, there's been a lot of, what's the word, support and use of the skate park. So it is a shame, and we saw that people were very disappointed when it was, had to be abandoned there. And so it sounds like you can raise the funds, and that's the main thing, right? It is the money as well as but fulfilling a need that goes forward for generations, hopefully. And I did want to know, how long does a concrete skate park last? I know it's much longer than the wooden ones.
Yeah, it's 20 years? Yeah, I was going to say 20 to 30 years, like, oh, sorry. The lifespan of the concrete skate park would be, 20 to 30 years with no maintenance, whereas the wooden one required yearly maintenance on it.
How
So,
about painting? I mean, I see that some on your pictures, some have a little paint, most are just plain concrete.
yeah, I think the paint is more of like a design thing. Obviously, then that means upkeep, right? Because paint
Yeah.
obviously chips away, so that's just another consideration. Like, I think we would take that into consideration with the developer. What do we want it to look like that's more maintenance-free than creating something that requires yearly upkeep? That's not, we don't want to do that. So,
And just for, Madam Mayor, just for a historical perspective, to make sure that everybody has the same baseline, the former skate park was on the only site in the township that was designated for affordable housing. So when it was put in, it was always known to be a temporary site, and then, according to some of the records in the files, it was going to be a temporary site, and then there was supposed to be a permanent location found sometime in the future. But the skate park was closed because it became part of our affordable housing obligation, and that's there was no way to keep it where it currently is located. So it has to be moved, or it has to be abandoned.
And
Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
if 20 years is a lifespan, the former skate park was built in 2001, so it got its useful life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Well, my question is not related to right now. It's whether this is open to any kind of skating or is it just skateboarding? It's not.
so ideally, the skate park is for skateboarders, scooters, right? The three-wheel scooters, rollerblades, roller skates.
Oh, so they all can use it?
Yes.
And they won't be killing each other?
No. Partially because, the bigger the bowl, the better you have to be to go in there, right? So a little 3-year-old is not going to go in that type of thing. It's designed so that it's age-friendly. It's, the better you are, there's challenging areas, there's easy areas. There was, some thought about whether you could do BMX biking in there. You could, but it has to be built slightly differently. You have to use a different kind of concrete. And also that becomes a liability because a bike is a lot bigger than a skateboard. And I know that they were not allowed to use BMX bikes at the previous skate park.
Could they use, were people using the other things, roller skates at the other?
Yes.
Oh, they were?
And I saw a couple kids over there a couple times on BMX bikes, but it wasn't really allowed. Partially because there's a lot going on. So, but rollerblades, roller skates, scooters, and skateboards. Yeah.
Mrs. Felice?
Yes, I have a couple questions. So I guess you said you guys goal is to raise 300,000. Are you guys, and you have like a plan to get to that? Is it?
Yes, we do. And we've had close to $200,000 already pledged, soft pledges.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, so what happens if Chatham Borough is not interested or can't afford the $150,000?
Then we will need to renegotiate where our division is, but we're going to work really hard to raise as much funding as we can. I mean, we would like it to be more of a partnership, considering that the township and the borough have many shared things, particularly recreation, so it would be, in everyone's interest. We have borough and township represented in our skate group, so I think, and you go through the town, you can't not have borough and township using it, so, but, yeah.
I'll just add one other point to that. We've also already had discussions, even, back over that long timeline of our meetings, with Mayor Koblars, Carolyn Dempsey, Councilwoman Carolyn Dempsey, as well as the borough administrator. So we have gotten their input. Obviously, when we were doing site selection, they were heavily involved. And they've given we'll call it a soft commitment. Yes, we love this idea. We think would be great for the two towns to work together. But obviously, we need the site. We've got to do some fundraising, and then, we're back to kind of getting to the hard numbers. But they have been very favorable so far.
Okay. And then one last question. Regarding the maintenance, I guess you guys said it was very low maintenance for the years. But what about like insurance costs? Is there is that like a committee expense that you're going to fundraise for as well, or how is that going to be handled?
A skate park is really just like a playground, so the insurance costs are similar to a playground. If we are raising money and if there is an additional cost, like I said in the presentation, unexpected costs, we'll cover that. We'll raise additional funds for that, but it should not be more than what a regular playground.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just as a point of clarification, it's, there's, the cost to insure a playground is going to be less than a skate park, but when the skate park goes forward, our carriers have to take a look at it during the design process from an underwriting point of view, so that they can assess what would be the premium for that. So if they feel that the skate park is designed with adequate or appropriate safety measures, then the cost for the insurance premiums will be less than if they deem that it's not designed as safely as possible. So that's one of the things that as this goes forward, there's going to have to be an underwriting review during the design phase, so that the skate park committee can have input and they can know that if the underwriters believe it's safe, then the premiums are going to be less. If not, there's going to be an increase in premiums. And this is just something that the joint insurance fund, we had a meeting yesterday. This was something that came up during our discussions, and there's going to be a safety bulletin coming out about that. So I'll be happy to forward that to you.
I have a question about that then. Just like a swimming pool, there's a mandated fence. Do you know if skate parks have that in the insurance requirements?
For a fence, I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, they're not showing fences in the pictures that you guys see.
You're not seeing fences in the conceptual designs, but yes, all the skate parks need to have fences. Any of the skate parks that we visit are fenced. And there is, from talking with Jason, there is a certain distance where the fence is to be placed. Yeah, so.
Also,
And a height, do you think? Is there a specific height? Maybe it goes by...
Probably. And that, yeah.
It depends on the height of the jumps or the height of
The height of the ramps and, yeah.
Oh, yeah, varies. Yeah.
Yes, but yes, I can think of all the skate parks we've been to, they've all been fenced.
also, what type of hours of operation do you guys think anticipate?
Open during daylight hours only,
Daylight.
Yes.
Okay.
and no lights.
No lights.
No.
Okay.
And I just want to add one thing. So one of the other things to take into consideration when it comes to the funding is we could utilize resources within, the township and the borough. I mean, Deb touched base on people making donations of lumber, but like when it comes to site preparation, we could maybe utilize the DPW to help with that, right? So it's like a lot of in-house stuff. If we could keep things in-house and utilize those resources, that'll keep the cost down as well. Yeah, and the developer was the one that suggested, like, let's work in-house with as many aspects as we can, because that's what keeps the cost down. So, just to consider that.
And I'm sure the township will consider it. We're not gonna commit our DPW to it just yet, but, I'm sure that the borough's DPW will be able to assist in some way as well.
But that's not factored in, any savings from on-site prep by our DPW is not factored into the cost at this point. So that would be a reduction of the cost.
Right, not at this point.
Okay. If we go for county funding, would that be the township or would that be the committee that would seek county funding?
It would probably wind up being the township. There is a method for not-for-profits to apply for grant funding directly through the county Open Space Committee. So that would be similar to what Greg Soha has done for a grant application to acquire some open space. But they do have some money for other types of recreation assets. But it would probably wind up being the township that would have to apply for grant funding.
Okay. So our public hearing process is very structured. So what I want to do, I don't want to go through reading that whole dialogue now. What I want to do is limit, if anybody has any questions, the committee is here. If you have any statements, let's push that off. If you're in, statements in support, statements against, because then we'll manage the time. But I'll open it now for any residents who have questions of the committee.
Are we going to do the 5-minute limit?
Well, questions, how many questions could they have? Just ask your questions and then we'll get answers and then we'll move on. So
We're going to normal procedure, like ask everything, then answers at the end?
let's do that. Ask everything, answers at the end, and we will max at 5 minutes. I'm hoping we don't get to that.
Okay,
Okay.
we do have one hand. Do you want to start with the audience here?
No, we could say if you've got somebody on because we've all been talking here. Got somebody on Zoom?
Yes, we do have one person. SL Carr.
Hi, this is Stuart Carr from 3 Crestwood Drive in Chatham Township, New Jersey. I had a quick question on the siting of the property or the location at 58 Myersville Road. I assume there's no opposition whatsoever amongst the committee members about the location. I know there's issues about financing, et cetera, but unlike Mrs. Abbott, I think one of the big issues obviously is the site in addition to the cash that's needed to do it. So is there any concern about the location, and do we think there may be some concern going forward as further diligence is done, or are we fairly comfortable that 58 Myersville Road is a good place for this at the committee level to be able to let the folks who are pushing this agenda, that they're okay with respect to this location? And if not, when would the time frame be to cut them loose to say this is the location they can pursue?
Okay, let me first address process because part of getting comfortable with the location is making sure we go through the process. We did suggest to the committee that we want a public review period, and at the end of that public review period, and the presentation's done, so now the presentation will be posted. If possible, Alex is back there, if we can get this segment of the video posted quicker, that would be great as well. And then the November 18th meeting, we can have a resolution on the agenda, and at that point, the committee will vote and discuss, and we will have a lot of input from the public at that point. Everything that's been presented, I think it sounds, this seems to be the site. There's been a lot of locations that have been eliminated. I do like the complementary use. My daughter's 24. We've been here for 24 years. That field is underutilized. It's been our own little private oasis, which has been lovely. But, you know, we have 10,000 people in Chatham, and it's okay for our neighbors to come and enjoy, you know, Myersville and the municipal building. So, and we do have, at least on that side, the gym is definitely, you know, very active. Of course, the senior center is very active. The municipal building is very active, but that playground is very underutilized. So it'll be nice to, you know, to have the community involved and over there on using that facility. Does anybody else want to give their input in terms of your thoughts?
My thought is it seems to me very early in this process to commit to land. I would like to see more of an evaluation of the land itself, whether it's with our engineer or whatever, and the value of the land, as well as like to see a real commitment from with the financing before we commit ourselves to the land.
John, you're on the line. Mr. Reschke, did you have, because you've been involved in a lot of, they've asked you a lot of questions about the sites. Did you have any thoughts about this location?
Well, actually, Madam Mayor, he hasn't been that involved in
Oh,
the
okay.
in the
All right.
sites, so
We got plenty of time.
you know, yeah, this is one of the first times that John is seeing this because, you know, in June we had an engineering meeting, so John came out to say hi and take a quick look around, but you know, he needs to be involved in the process now that this has been formalized. So once we get it, John can take a look at it. But,
Okay.
yeah.
And the one comment I would say, Mayor, is that when we did improvements at Shunpike and other locations, the township isn't obligated to do it, but we did notify residents within 200 feet when we were going to make an action. So it may be something that the committee may want to consider is let the residents, if you go, when you do take action or want to hear this further, just let the residents in the neighborhood know that you're moving forward and invite them to the meeting.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that was part of having, you know, thinking about the 30-day public comment period was to make sure that the folks in the neighborhood had an opportunity to review the presentation and to comment.
Yeah, and then, you know, just another comment is that certainly the township, you know, and I'm sure Bob would bring this up eventually, but then, you know, there should be an interlocal agreement between the township and the borough, and, you know both municipalities basically have to commit to these funds, and so there should be an agreement between the municipalities. And if it's public funds being applied, it would have to be a public contract. And I believe Spawn Ranch, I'm not sure if they're under a state contract or a national contract, but, you know, that would have to be researched to make sure that the township could, you know, assuming they're going to take the lead and they're going to ultimately have the contract, because, you know, it does have to follow the public contract laws because it's public funds being applied to it. You know, they have to comply with prevailing wages and all those, you know, those issues. So, you know, just things that need to be worked out as is, you know, looking forward.
Yeah, John, you're right. Those are things for, you know, for the future meetings. But there's an outline. Spawn Ranch is a part of a couple of purchasing cooperatives that the borough and the township participate in. But all of those things we're way ahead of ourselves right now by speaking about them. It's just, this is the first time people are hearing about the location. We have to see if the location is right, and then, you know, there's going to be the presentation to the borough, and then, you know, afterwards we go down the checklist and we make sure that we're doing things properly, and the biggest hurdle is going to be the skate park committee is going to have to raise money, because neither the borough nor the township is going to be willing to commit funds unless there's already funds in some bank account. So.
Well, they already looked at, what did you say, 13 or 15 other places before they sold
Right.
this? And this seemed to be like a perfect spot.
Yeah. But then comes the hard part, raising funds for it. So, you know, and if the group does form a 501c3, then you know, on behalf of the township, I would be looking for them to raise money, and I'd like to see money in their account before the municipalities look ahead and decide whether they're going to commit funds or not. That would be a policy decision of both the township committee and the borough. committee.
Yes, and that's a later phase. So the first phase would be to designate the site. And then, so
Correct.
that's what, that's,
Why does that have to be the first phase? I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. To me, it seems like I'd rather commit to the site after the funds have been raised, where we know that the funds have settled, it's good, then we're giving away land. That's,
Because they have nowhere to, they can't fundraise without
Yeah.
a
Can
potential
I-
site.
You cannot legally fundraise if you do not have a location. I cannot ask a corporation or a private entity to give me money without a location. When you're filling out the grant applications, that's one of
and
the...
it has to be 100% committed to, we can't
Yes.
take that back.
No, it has to be.
That's my issue with it. where-
Otherwise, it's like me going to your door
Is there
and
a
saying,
deadline?
do you have money? Could you give me money?
Of course. But is there a deadline where you have to raise the funds? If we commit the land and you have to raise the funds by a certain date, otherwise we get that land back and could do something else with it.
Is there a contingency? That's going to be up to the discussion in the future.
Okay,
But
yeah.
all of the grants require that you fill out information. They want to know your progress. They want to know who also is contributing to the project. And they want to know over time, if you do not get to a certain point, then you have to explain why you haven't reached this point in the build process. Yes, so their money is contingent on finishing whatever we've said we were going to do.
I mean, you guys are taking all the risk.
Yes.
If they don't raise the money, the township doesn't have to risk any.
Well, we're risking the land
No, we're not. It's
we could
our
take it
land.
back, yeah.
Take it right back.
at any point.
And it's not given out, it's just used. you know.
Right, at any point. Well,
I don't see a risk, I see it's their risk.
Yeah.
I see.
I think it's reasonable if, and somebody can let me know if this doesn't work, but it's reasonable if we say, we designate the land, there's a plan to have it done by 2023, and, 2023 rolls around. If it's not done, or if it's not at a certain point of progress, then the committee at that point decides, if somebody else comes along and wants another ball field on the other side.
Right,
Yeah.
that's my thing, like, what if another group decides wants to raise money for a different type of park, and it's also the perfect spot, and they already have, they're like, we have the commitments, we have it ready to go, we have a bank account with $300,000 in it, we want that land. And my attitude is, how do we juggle that, as a committee?
I think it's unlikely, but
Of course, well, we have a skate park committee, we don't know. I'm just saying is that I don't like to limit, an asset that we have.
That's part of designating, is limiting it for some period of time, to make the decision that that's the priority,
I
yeah.
understand.
And certainly, if there's other folks who want to step up now and talk about other use, and I don't mean literally right now,
Yeah.
but during the process, if there were other competing uses, I hope, people speak up at this point.
And they would run into the same problem, that they can't legally,
What if like a single person decides to say, okay, I'm gonna donate it 300 grand myself? I'm just saying, like, we don't know.
For this specific
For-
site that we're looking at?
Well, it could be, my point is that we don't know.
But that's what the public period will be.
Right, so I'm just saying is that this seems very, very early in the process.
We've been having discussions for 2 years.
2 years.
Okay,
Yeah, but you know what this,
I have not seen a presentation on it, I have not spoken to any of you, I have not, this is my first time seeing all this, so this is brand new to me. Okay, so I'm trying to get brought up to speed on everything that you guys have done, and I appreciate all the work that you did, it's definitely a lot of work, no question about it, and we need volunteers just like you guys, doing these awesome things for the community. My only concern is just, I don't like limiting our options, so I just see this as early on in the process. I understand you guys see it as later because of how involved you are, and I get it. So, I think we just need to do some more research. And seeing, I'd love to get an evaluation from our engineer and so forth.
And the public hearing process is perfect.
Yep. Mrs. Kelly?
Hi, I just have one question, and you've touched on it a little bit. Just wondering, how soon would the neighbors on Myersville Road find out about this? And are they going to would they get a special notification? Because it's like right in their backyard. And, you know, the other skate park really wasn't so much in the neighborhood. And I'm pleased to hear that there wouldn't be lights. I think that'll make a huge difference. But
Yeah.
that's all.
Just for formality, your name and...
My name is Maureen Kelly on Mountain Avenue.
So, okay, let's talk about that. So what, for the 200-foot notification requirement, what kind of time frame do we need? If we
Well,
go that
Greg-
route?
Greg would need to prepare a list, and then now that we have a public presentation, we can send out some kind of notification, but there would have to be a determination of when would there be a public hearing on it, or what are some of the other mechanics. But a letter...
I mean, is November 18th a realistic date for the resolution and for the public hearing? Like, because that would give us 30 days for a public comment period.
Well, I'm not sure realistically, a letter could be sent out by the end of next week, or some kind of notification, and then we have to look at a calendar and see. But the residents on Myersville Road that are going to be affected, they need to have a period of time where they can come in and take a look, or they can go online and take a look at it.
Okay.
So we can do that, but just one other thing that I'd like to clarify is that while the committee might have been doing work, they were doing work so that they could get to this point, and this point is the public presentation. This is the first time that the Township Committee is hearing about the work that they've done and the recommendation that they're making for a location. So we all must understand that this really is the beginning of the process. They've done the work to get here, but the Township Committee did not, this is the first time that they're seeing the presentation. They have not been aware of all of the work that's happened over the past year and a half or 2 years. So when we think about it, tonight is the unveiling, and tonight really is the beginning. And so the process starts from here. So the questions that are being asked by Committeewoman Felice and by all of the members of the Township Committee, they're legitimate, but this is the first time we're hearing about it, and this starts the public discussion.
Okay. So were there any other questions? Let me see if I could see on here.
I don't think we had any other hands raised.
Okay. I'm looking.
There are other hands, no other hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. Now I don't know how to close this box I opened. Yeah. Thank you. So I'll go over with Mr. LeConte and Mr. Hoffman all the things that have to take place for this public hearing process, and then we'll come up with a date for when to put the resolution on the calendar, and then we'll get back to you and let you know what that looks like.
And I'll work with Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Cruz to figure out what would need to go out in the notice. Sending it out is easy. I can do that in an hour. It's just a matter of knowing what needs to be in it.
Okay.
And then we have to coordinate with the borough in some fashion.
Yes.
So, yep.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work. Okay. Somewhere in here I have a mayor's message. I wanted to provide an update on development of affordable housing in our community. I am pleased to announce that Chatham Township filed a declaration of taking and received title to 522 Southern Boulevard on September 28th. While this committee does not take lightly the use of condemnation in meeting our affordable housing obligation, 522 Southern Boulevard was the right opportunity as the Charlie Brown restaurant had ceased operation and the landowners expressed an interest in selling the property. The condemnation process helped determine a fair price for the property, and we thank the Kronos family for their patience in the negotiations and throughout the process. As the last condition of our conditional judgment of compliance in the third round affordable housing, as it is complete, our township attorney has filed for a judgment of compliance, and we anticipate receiving that shortly. Assuming we continue to move forward as outlined in our affordable housing agreement, that judgment of compliance conveys immunity from builder's remedy through to 2025. As I mentioned previously, the developer of 522 Southern Boulevard submitted an application for 9% tax credit financing, which will help reduce the township's contribution towards the cost of construction for 522. While we won't hear about the tax credit award until November, our application was highly competitive and we're cautiously optimistic. Assuming we win the award, we expect construction at 522 Southern to begin in June or July of 2022 and to be completed by the end of 2024. Walter's Cornerstone Development has been a wonderful partner throughout this process. I am confident they will deliver a quality product for our new residents and one that they can be proud of. As part of the original 2018 settlement agreement, there's also 24 affordable housing rental apartments under construction on the former skate park site. As residents can see, construction at Arbor Green is moving forward rapidly. We anticipate that project to be complete in the first half of 2023. Regarding the Noe Pond property, the owner, SL Chatham LLC, is interested in presenting a concept plan to the Township Committee. The Township Committee has referred their request to the Planning Board for review and consideration as part of the Master Plan update, which will begin in 2022. And that's all I have. We'll be moving on to reports. Committeewoman Fleece.
I have nothing new to report.
Okay.
Quiet couple weeks.
Yeah, we don't get our colony updates anymore.
Right?
Committeeman Hamilton, I did not get any, I hope I did not, I'll check my messages shortly. He's not here, and I'll have to check if he provided any updates. Committeewoman Fondaco.
Okay, yes. First of all, the Chatham Township Historical Society is having a presentation of American Women and Royal Marriages, New Jersey's Dollar Princesses, and it's about Melissa C. Ziobro is a specialist professor of public history in Monmouth County University. She'll talk about wealthy young women from New Jersey who married European royalty. During the Gilded Age, from 1870 to 1900, some members of the European royalty could no longer afford their great houses and sought out wealthy American brides whose family had plenty of newly made money, but no social standing. The European groom got money to support his estate, and the American bride got a title and social class. Everybody won, or did they? And you can find out, the presentation is on Sunday, October 24th at 4 p.m. via Zoom. Also with the Historical Society, the schoolhouse, the Red Schoolhouse Museum, will be open on November 7th from 2 to 4 for visitors. Okay, that's it for the Historical Society. Our local Town and Country Garden Club has planted mums at the Soldiers Memorial in Green Village, and the flowers were donated by Creekside Farm. The Art League of the Chathams will have their opening reception on this coming Sunday from 2 to 4 here at this municipal building. The art is already on display and will be here until mid-December. And it can be seen during the regular business hours. Okay, then I want to just show you everybody this. This is for, this is the PTR2 to be completed in order for you to take advantage of the senior tax freeze. And it must be filed by November 1st. Do you know about this?
Yes, because you tell me every year.
You're not old enough
I'm not
yet.
old enough, but you tell me every year anyway.
Okay, well, that's it for me.
Actually, I should know that my report would be about the senior center and they work, do they make an effort to push?
Oh, I'm sorry, but I know this had to be done, so. 'cause
No, I
just-
know, I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't, I'm saying,
That's part of your report.
no, it's not. So I'm gonna like, not just say thank you for bringing it up, but I wanna know if like, yeah, fill in my report, the senior center, do they, try to promote that and make aware, they probably do every single year, right?
Probably, I don't know what they do. This is
Okay, I should just.
part of my,
I think they should.
yes, good idea.
Thank you for bringing it up.
I thought I vaguely recall them providing support, yeah.
They provide support, yeah, it sounds like they would.
Yeah.
And so I have the only, are you done, Sally?
Oh, I'm finished, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
The only report I have on the senior center is that we have on our agenda that they asked for a new 5-year lease for $1 a year. So it's be coming up later. And obviously, the reason it's $1 a year is because it's an extremely valuable service to, you know, it's a constantly refreshing number of citizens. And again, as I said last time, it's 2 generations of people that use that center, the senior center.
Okay, so my reports, the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee continues to move forward. They've interviewed our township planner twice, our township engineer. Is that me? Oh, that's
Oh, that's Liz.
Oh, that's me?
It sounds like someone banging something in the back of the room, but it's actually.
When you're not talking.
Okay, I'll turn it off.
Yeah.
Greg, how that we can be heard from that mic even from this distance?
That one only works for Zoom.
Oh.
Land needs your mic.
So moving on, we interviewed the township engineer and our administrator. I want to thank all of them for their patience in answering many detailed questions. The Affordable Housing Advisory Committee has learned a lot from the process. I also want to thank the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee for their efforts. It's often a difficult, tedious, contentious process, but their efforts will yield a better outcome for Chatham Township. There's a lot of smart, hardworking people on the committee, and much like what's going to happen in the town when we talk about affordable housing and where it's going to go, there's just a lot of differing opinions. So it makes for difficulties at times, but you know, they're producing wonderful product and they're doing a great job, and hopefully they all hang in there to get to the end where they will make recommendations to the committee. The Finance Committee met with our township auditor to better understand the guidelines for using the over $1 million in American Rescue Plan Act funding that the township received, half this year and half next year. The township has until December 31st, 2024 to obligate the funds, and projects must be completed by December 31st, 2026. As a next step, the Finance Committee has asked our CFO and Township Administrator to outline priorities and options that would meet the guidelines so that the committee can start planning how to allocate the funds. The Municipal Alliance Committee met. The Consortium of School Districts is hosting a webinar on October 20th at 7 p.m., the Parents Wellness Series called Just Talk About It. It helps parents to see the warning signs, to learn the warning signs of stress, anxiety, depression, and crisis, and to share best practices and coping skills through the, you know, various organizations I belong to, and they happen to be Tri-Town. The stress and anxiety for our kids has shifted from isolation and lockdown to back to the high intense, overscheduled environment that they once were kind of trained and somewhat accustomed to, but was still stressful and anxiety filled, and now they're getting thrown in, you know, at 150%, coming back from the pandemic and from peace and quiet. So it's a different kind of stress, but it's, you know, that's what our experts are seeing. So this is a good opportunity to kind of learn for parents to learn about the signs and to get some guidance on coping skills. And that's October 20th. If you want more information, you can go on the school district website, chatham-nj.org. And the link is under the announcements tab. Mr. LaConte, do you have any reports?
Yes, I do. Let me just get my camera on. A few things. First, I'd like to report that the annual flu clinic will be held on October 29th. That'll be here at the municipal building from 10:30 to 12:30 in the gymnasium. People that want to get their flu shots there should sign up in advance. The link is available on the township website and on our Facebook page. And rather than being just for seniors, this is for anyone age 6 and up. So, anyone that's around during the day that hasn't had their flu shot by then can, sign up in advance. Sign-ups are required so that way we can spread people out throughout the 2 hours rather than have everybody show up all at once at the beginning. We want to, space things out for COVID protection.
What day is that again?
That's Friday, October 29th, 10:30 to 12:30. And then that's for township residents. And again, age 6 and up. Shortly thereafter, on November 6th, we will have our free rabies clinic. That'll be at the DPW garage from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. And that is open for anybody statewide to bring their dogs and cats for rabies shots. That's statewide since it's, the vaccine is funded through the state. And my rationale, it's, free anyway because it's, funded by the state, but also my rationale is, if your dog gets loose, they don't know that the river is the border between Chatham and New Providence. So, we want everybody to be protected.
Is that a 3-year shot? Is that a 3-year rabies?
Or it can be either 3-year or 1 year, depending on the age of your dog. Usually a dog's first shot is a 1-year shot, and then the 3-year is when they're getting their second shot or beyond. And I know I've reported these next 2 items before, but just as a reminder, in the lead up to the November general election, this year we're having for the first time early voting on voting machines. Mail-in ballots are still an option for early voting, but we'll have actual on-machine early voting. That'll be from Saturday, October 23rd to Sunday, October 31st. The hours will be Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., and Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. So after you can get your voting in, either during or before your trick-or-treating. And there are a few locations around the county. I'm going to bring up the map of that so that way people can see where the locations are. There are the 7 locations around the county. The closest one is going to be this one here in Madison. There's also Morristown, Morris Plains, Hanover Township, Rockaway, Mount Arlington, and Mount Olive. And the location that's in Madison will be their senior center and civic center, which will be on Walnut Street. The address is 28 Walnut Street, and since I'm a nerd that likes maps, just so everybody can see where Walnut Street is, it's if you take Ridgedale Ave, if you take Main Street to Park Ave, turn right onto Ridgedale, and go down 2 blocks to Walnut, and turn right onto Walnut. It's just a couple doors down to get to the early voting location. And as I said last time, the more people that vote early, the easier my life becomes on election day. And speaking of voting, the drop box for mail-in ballots is located outside the front door of the municipal building. We have 24-hour security camera on that. I know some people have already dropped off their mail-in ballots. And something that's important for people to know is that if you receive a mail-in ballot, that is your option for voting. If you receive a mail-in ballot, you cannot vote on the machine. If you show up at your polling place to vote there, you will get a provisional ballot that doesn't get counted until a couple weeks after the election. They have to count all the machine votes first and all the mail-ins first to make sure that you didn't vote twice. So if you receive the mail-in ballot, my suggestion is fill it out and either mail it in or drop it off in the box at the municipal building. And so pretty much every town now has one of those just to make things easier for voters. And I see Mr. Cruz is coming in back. Okay, and if anyone has any questions on any of that, feel free to let me know.
Great.
And if you're not registered to vote, the deadline for this coming election has come and gone. This past Tuesday was the deadline for voter registration.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rushke, do you have any updates?
No updates, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Cruz?
No report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And Mr. Hoffman?
Yes, Madam Mayor, a few reports. I wanted to let the Township Committee know and our residents know that we have approximately 800 people have picked up sets of plans that they're eligible to receive if your home is over 10 years old. We had sent out 1,200 letters, so we have just under 400 sets of plans remaining in the construction office. So if you did receive a letter, please come in and pick up your plans. You have until Friday, October 29th to pick up the plans and take them home so that you'll know where your weight-bearing walls are and things like that related to your house. And you're helping us create space on our files, but you're also getting a valuable asset for your own house. The subcommittee for the master plan review has finished reviewing the 7 responses that came in. They were comprehensive responses that came in, and we have set up interviews for 4 of the people or 4 of the organizations that responded. So we'll be reviewing or interviewing them next week, and then we'll come forward with recommendations to the Township Committee for final candidates. Yesterday, Wednesday, October 13th, our DPW began to replace the LED lights in our traffic signals. So this is, they're converting the current lights to LED lights. You can no longer get you can only get LED lights. You can't get the current lights that are there. The LED lights are supposed to last between 7 and 8 years, so they're going to be replacing all of the bulbs in our traffic lights. What's important about this is that this is something we're doing in-house now because we have a licensed electrician on staff. So we used to have to contract that out and wait in a queue, but now we're able to do it ourselves and do the replacement and based on the cost for in-house versus the contractors, where we're going to be saving some money over the course of the installations. And then also the DPW is completing a beautification project near the bus stop at Buxton, at the intersection of Buxton and Fairmont Avenue and Southern Boulevard. So if you drive by over the next day or so, take a look at it. That site is really a site that's owned by the county, but it needed some TLC, and so our DPW is taking care of that. And also, the first traffic light that they did the LED upgrades on is at that intersection, at the intersection of Southern Boulevard and Fairmont Avenue. So if you drive by and you see that the light looks a little different, you can thank our DPW for that. Then on Saturday, October 30th, rain or shine, we're going to be having a Clean Communities cleanup, and that will be all day on Saturday. But if you wanted to drop off any trash, you can drop it off at the DPW yard from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. There'll be a dumpster there, and you can drop off any kind of trash that you pick up. If you need gloves or a vest or something like that, also there's a limited amount of grabbers that you can use to pick up garbage and recycling. You can stop down at the DPW and they will give that to you. One of the reasons we're doing this is, besides trying to keep our township clean and litter free, is that if we have a formal event like this, it entitles us to Clean Communities grant funding. So we want to make sure that we have this program and that it's advertised so that we remain eligible for Clean Communities grant funding. And I want to commend our recycling coordinator and DPW administrative assistant Christy Tragno for putting this together, and for Rich Young for helping with this. But this is something that will help the township, and hopefully our residents will participate. And our DPW also has gone through and they did a cleanup of River Road because it's a busy road, and they didn't want residents to be walking along River Road, so they've gone through and they did a cleanup before the open house for the fire department. So,
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, so that's
What was
that's
the date
going on.
again? Clean
What's that?
Communities? What was the date?
It's Saturday, October 30th, rain or shine.
And where do you bring the garbage? Right to the usual place on Tanglewood?
No, to your house? No, to the DPW, at 405 Southern Boulevard. They'll have a dumpster there. And thank you, that's my report.
Great, thank you. Okay, we're going to open up the hearing of citizens. I just have some guidelines to read. Meeting access is guided by the state of emergency and the related governor's executive orders. The committee meeting room is open to the public, and we look forward to having you join us. For your convenience, this meeting can also be viewed remotely on Comcast Channel 29, Fios Channel 26, and Zoom, or you can listen in from your phone by dialing one of the phone numbers listed on the agenda. If you are watching via cable TV, you can participate in the public comment sessions of this meeting by dialing any of the phone numbers which are listed on the agenda and which will be shown on your TV screen. Callers must press *9 to raise your hand to speak. If you are watching via Zoom, you may speak during any of the public comment sessions by following the Zoom instructions to raise your hand. Whether in person or online, when you are recognized to speak, please mind the following procedures. Say your name, spell your last name, and give the name of your street. You do not need to give your street number. All public comments will be limited to 5 minutes. Rather than use any of your time answering questions, we will wait until you finish speaking before responding. We have 2 public comment sessions on tonight's agenda. Each member of the public will be limited to 1 comment of up to 5 minutes during each public comment period. Written comments submitted to the Township Clerk before 3 p.m. today will be read during the public comment sessions. Written comments are subject to the same guidelines as oral comments. Duplicative written comments may be summarized rather than read in full. Mr. LeConte, did we receive any written comments?
We did not.
Okay, thank you. I'm opening the public hearing, and if anybody would like to speak who's in the audience, please step forward.
You can take your mask off at the mic if you want.
Oh, boy, a break. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Richard Farno, F-A-R-N-O-W, 238 Longwood Avenue. I'm here to give a presentation on behalf of me and 34 residents of Longwood who've signed a petition that I have on the parking issue on Longwood Avenue. And I'm not too sure if this is the proper time to give that presentation, or it should be later when you're having a possible ordinance resolution discussion on the Longwood issue.
Well, yeah, may I speak, Madam Mayor?
Sure.
No, this is on the agenda for discussion. There would be no ordinance or whatever, but this was just so Mr. Farno could articulate the concerns of his neighbors.
Oh, that's right, I did
So
recall.
it's item number 3 under discussion.
Okay, unfortunately, you're going to be sitting for a bit longer.
Well, that's all right.
You're okay?
Yeah, as long as I can do it later, it's okay.
Yes, you'll be able to do that later.
Okay.
And then you won't be limited by the 5 minutes.
I don't need 5 minutes.
Okay.
It's pretty short.
Is it short? Why, then we shouldn't,
Oh, so whatever you want to do.
Yeah, you can go to.
yeah, why don't, if it's not more than 5 minutes, go ahead.
And, Madam Mayor, if just to let you know, we have Chief Miller on standby for.
Oh, okay, wonderful.
He's in.
Go.
Go for it, yeah.
Okay, again, my name is Richard Farno. I live at 238 Longwood Avenue with my wife and family for 30 years. I'm here again, 25 years later, representing Longwood Avenue residents, asking the Township Committee to provide relief to the residents of Longwood Avenue for a parking situation on Longwood Avenue. Brief history of the issue. The parking issue started in 1996 with high school students parking on Longwood Avenue. In 1996, reopening of Lafayette Avenue School, the juniors were allowed to park there prior, and then they were banned from parking at Lafayette Avenue School. They then parked on Maple Street across from the high school, and no parking school days was ordinanced for Maple Street as a result of that. They then parked on Longwood Avenue, where I live, and I became involved. Talked to the school, police, township officials, and got a petition from residents on Longwood Avenue. The school then and now has had not any current or future plans to provide additional parking for the students to keep them from parking on nearby streets around the high school. The result of my previous thing in 1996 was the township passing ordinance with no parking on one side of the streets all day on school days, and the other side, school days, no parking 7 to 10 a.m. The result of this was the closest place to park was the Colony Pool Club. They kind of drew a map, and that was the closest place. That brings us up to now and the current situation. Because of the new open campus policy allowing students to leave the school grounds during school hours, the students park at Colony in the morning, and at lunch, they go there to the Colony and bring their cars back en masse to Longwood Avenue, resulting in the following problems. 40-plus cars a day. Number one, congestion causing limited passage of vehicles. I have photos to show that. Two-way passage is near impossible. Blocking driveway entrances on a regular basis. I have an example of a photo of a neighbor that took that picture. Cars hitting and destroying mailboxes, 2 that I know of in the first 3 weeks of school this year. Loitering and littering on the street and private properties. Using private properties as a conduit to the school grounds. Okay, then delaying or not receiving mail delivery from the postmaster. From 1996, I got the postal regulations, and he said customers must remove obstructions, including vehicles. Carriers must have access to the mailbox without leaving the vehicle unless authorized to dismount. Pony Express days, maybe? All of these create a quality of life issue on Longwood Avenue for the residents, the same as 25 years ago. All residents I spoke to, 34 signed the following petition. I would describe their demeanor as livid with the parking situation. We petitioned the Township Committee to pass an ordinance to further limit school day parking on both sides of Longwood Avenue. We request that the present ordinance be amended to no parking 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. school days to correct the newly created problem. This will correct the Longwood Avenue issue and not send it to the adjoining streets, with parking at the Colony School pool being the closest place to park. It worked for the last 25 years, and it can work again. We respectfully request your attention to resolving this matter. Thank you, Richard Farno and 34 other residents of Longwood Avenue. And I have here the petition that was signed by the 34 residents asking for this relief. I have the photos here of the cars lined up on the one side of the street on Longwood, and another photo here of one of the cars blocking the driveway entrances. So as I was 25 years ago, they asked me, well, where are your neighbors? Well, I didn't see any need to get a school bus and drag them all over here. They've all signed a petition. They asked me to come here and present their stuff for them. So you don't want to hear each of them for 5 minutes saying the same stuff that I say. Any questions that I can answer?
What if you were going to have a party at your house? Would you have to have your guests?
Well, presently, it's no parking on one side and no parking on the other side 7 to 10 school days. We're proposing 7 to 1 school days, so, you could have a party after that. In addition, most of the residences on Longwood Avenue have a lot of parking in their driveways. They're pretty long. What?
And they don't have parties.
No, they have parties.
So it's only from
brunches.
Yeah.
Until 1 p.m., Monday through Friday, is what you're...
No, it was school days only.
School days only, okay.
Right. So that would prevent them from parking at the Colony Pool Club and then en masse at lunchtime going out, and then it's a big get-together down in Longwood when they all park their cars there. And then, that would resolve that issue as it was resolved in the past.
Thank you.
You can have your parties on Saturday.
Yeah. And it would just make amending the ordinance to make it from, instead of 10 a.m. to then 1 p.m. The present ordinance is already there.
Okay. Thank you. So I kind of threw off the whole rhythm of this meeting. The discussion, because we're going to have a discussion, and we will have to bring in Chief Miller, so we will have the rest of that discussion later when it's on the agenda.
Okay, I'll be here.
Thank you.
And I'll send the committee a scan of the petition and the pictures.
Great, thank you.
Now, and Greg, is that the petition from dated November 14th of 2019?
Yes.
Okay, good. So that petition is still in effect. The Township Committee in 2020 had received that in January of 2020. But this is, you need to see the petition.
Yeah, we have new members since then?
Yep, exactly, that's why.
Thank you. Mrs. Kelly?
Hi, Maureen Kelly on Mountain Avenue. I have a couple of issues this evening, so I'll be brief. The first thing is that we actually have an opening on the Environmental Commission that we were looking to fill. So just want to start getting the word out. Dot Stillinger is irreplaceable, of course, but we do need the help. So we would like to do that. And then speaking of the Environmental Commission, I have assumed the role of the chairperson of this commission. And I want to open the conversation about our tree ordinance. It seems to me, and we discussed at our last meeting, that while in 2018 a brand new tree ordinance was introduced and we all thought it was good, a couple of years later now we're finding that maybe it's not as good as we thought. And here's what I'm getting at. It's not preserving our mature trees. The mature trees are what's going to help us. They're absorbing water, and we all had I was fortunately away for the Hurricane Ida thing, but with the terrible flooding that went on in New Jersey, it's our mature trees that have a big role to play, and apparently over 300 tree permits have been issued so far this year in the township, and unfortunately many of them are big trees being taken out for all kinds of reasons, sometimes more legitimate than others. So just wanted to start the conversation of, can something be done to tighten this up? I do understand that the township needs to give a permit if somebody has a request that's legal. They have to give it, but maybe it could be tightened up in some ways, and we have not totally researched those ways. So there's that. The second thing, when I was thinking that we have an environmental commission vacancy, it also, I think it's quite possible that there's a vacancy on the library board of trustees that I haven't heard nobody talk about, and Mark Hamilton has never mentioned it in any of his reports. So just wondering about an update on that. So those couple things.
Okay. Well, I can answer the library quick and easy. So, as you probably know, somebody who's on the library board moved from the borough to the township, but was holding a borough spot. So I wanted to give the opportunity to Mayor Kobolars that they don't have concern at some point that they weren't fairly represented, that he would have the first right of appointing to someone to that seat. So I have to chase him down and find out what his decision is, but certainly if he doesn't want the spot, then we can appoint somebody to that seat. So that's basically, it's just reorganizing the spots that were allotted.
Well, they're about to be spending a lot of money.
Yes.
And it would be better to have the township fairly represented.
I believe the township and the borough both have an equal number of spots, so if someone moves from one town to the other, they would have to give up the spot that they had, and it'd be up to the other town if they want to reappoint them.
You're allowed to have 2 seats that are outside of your town.
Are you?
So she could remain on the library board as a township resident holding a borough spot. But again, at some point, because it's the township, I think you could literally even be in Morristown and hold a spot. So,
Okay, I haven't seen their bylaws, but I just assumed that.
yeah. So, again, just to make sure there wasn't any confusion or concern down the road that we kind of unfairly co-opted too many spots. I felt let's clean it up now, but if he doesn't want to clean it up, then we'd be happy to appoint somebody if somebody's interested. So I will chase that down. With respect to the tree ordinance, I feel like that comes up a lot. And I know there was some discussion with our master plan. Yeah, yes, Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, this is something that will wind up coming back to the Township Committee. There's the tree ordinance that was introduced or adopted in 2018. It had a specific purpose, and now that it's been in effect for a while, it's going to require a couple of adjustments so that it can be more, so that it will serve the needs of the township as well as the needs of our residents. There's the document is 7 pages long, and it requires a significant amount of effort on our residents' part to fill it out. Our staff in the construction office is spending a significant amount of time assisting residents to fill out the form and make sure that it's accurate, and doing the follow-up. Part of the reason that we're seeing a lot of trees coming down is that there are right now 4 diseases that are affecting our trees. So it's yes, we're seeing a lot, but you know, there's at least 270 trees that have been had to be taken down because of the emerald ash borer disease, and then we now have the lantern fly that's been affecting trees, and we've had other trees that are reaching the end of their life cycle. So there's a significant amount of rot that's in the root structure, and we have residents that are willing to, they want to replant trees. They don't want to replant them close to their house, but they're also looking for an opportunity. If they can't plant on their property, they would like to be able to contribute to a tree trust fund or something like that. So those are some of the adjustments that we would like to look at, so that we would have the ability to replant in other areas that would need trees. But part of it is those 4 diseases that are now affecting the trees. The other thing that we will come back to the Township Committee with some recommendations is that in tracking the trees on the form, people have the opportunity to replant trees, and they tell us that where, you know, how many trees they would like to replant. As of this afternoon, from January 1st of, I guess it's 2020 through today, we have 240 trees that we have been told people are willing to replant, which is nice, but we don't have there's no method to go out and to see if they've been replanted, and if they haven't, some kind of vehicle to say, how come you haven't replanted it? If you can't replant it, why, or do you want to make a contribution to a shade tree trust or something of that nature? So we just, now that we have used the forms and we have seen them in action, it's time to make adjustments so that we can try and figure out how do we save trees, but also how do we protect homeowners and how do we protect property.
Okay. And Mrs. Kelly, is the Environmental Commission going to study? It would be nice to kind of get some best practices and some other things that you're seeing in other towns that seem to be working.
We'll be on it to the extent we have manpower. We would be happy to be of any assistance we can, but we are a little bit short of manpower.
Okay.
So we have a couple things on our plate at the moment, but this is important to us.
So if somebody out there has a passion for maintaining mature trees in town, contact Maureen Kelly. She needs help on the Environmental Commission.
And if we have anyone that actually wants to step up and be on the Environmental Commission, they can reach out to me to get the form to fill out.
Yes, thank you. Do we have anybody else online?
2 online.
Okay.
First up is Lisa McHugh.
First, I have to unmute. It's not Lisa, it's Marty McHugh, but we do live together here on Ormont Road, MCHUGH. My thunder, I don't know about thunder, but my 5 minutes has become 2 because my subject is the same. I'm a tree guy, and I had wanted to bring to the attention of the committee that some things are good, and that is a tree ordinance, but maybe they can be better. And so rather than going through my list, I will say there are residents that are supporting a review or a different look at how we might be able to provide motivation to plant natives, how we can perhaps look at a follow-up to the ordinance to make sure those that were promised are delivered. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I've been muted.
Okay, next up, we have Mr. Carr.
Hi, this is Stuart Carr, C-A-R-R, 3 Crestwood Drive in Chatham Township, New Jersey. 5 relatively quick items. Number 1, wanted to check in with Mr. Hoffman about the status of Moody's reports posted online. Asked that a few months ago. I was suggesting as a best practice something like 5 years or something like that of annual Moody's reports being posted. I know there's one on there now. Probably takes about 5 minutes to call up the analyst and get those documents online in order that the community can have a historical background. I know that the reports do have historical information in them, but I think having annual reports, which the town has already paid for, are readily accessible and should be posted on the town website as an ongoing practice. So one consideration or suggestion there. Number 2 item is something similar. Chatham Township Planning Board, unlike other towns, for example, Chatham Borough, actually has the planning board meetings online, just like they have the committee meetings or the town, what's his name? Council meetings, excuse me, there. We don't have anything like that here in Chatham Borough, Chatham Township, nothing wrong with that, but I think that having the transcript, the verbal transcript or audio transcript posted on the Chatham Township Planning Board website would be constructive going forward. So if you could consider that, please. That would be helpful. Number 3 item is email that I sent to Mr. Hoffman and Mr. Rushke several months ago about that ordinance 2017-20 about the no net increase in stormwater management activity, where that is how the no net increase language seemed to get away from the prior ordinance when it became the 2017-20, and just to explain where there is still a no net increase in quantity component in the overall statutory framework. Then number 4, would like to check with Mr. Hoffman about an update on the Oak Knoll School access for the Chatham Recreation activity, where that is. Ms. Ewald spoke to that a few months ago about what the background there is. And then finally, if Mr. Rushke or Mr. Hoffman could perhaps give a brief overview of the Dixie-Dale 30.4 acres, how we now have, I think, resolved the 10.413 acres of conservation easement, approximately 22 or so total of common open space, and then how the common open space dimension is run by the homeowners association, and the planning board has jurisdiction over whether any kind of increased density could be done there, but there's a different level of requirement for purposes of conservation easement, what kind of change could happen there, and is that more difficult, etc. So that's my gang of 5. Appreciate your help and appreciate your time, and if we can get some response on some of that at your convenience, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Carr, could you repeat the last one? There was a lot to that one. I want to make sure I
Sure.
understand.
And again, this is not for just academic interest. It has to do with the Dixie-Dale development on Hillside/River Road. And the reason for the inquiry is because there was a lot of confusion, at least in my mind, at least to me, I should say, a couple of years ago, about using the word open space. And when we hear the word open space, we think Basraelian and preservation of open space. When we hear the word open space, we think preservation, as in conservation easement. But in the planning board world or in the statutory world, open space and common open space is a different definition from that of actual conservation easement open space. And the reason why that's not just academic is because as we get into this, what Ms. Ewald referenced a minute ago, the Noe Pond/395 Southern Boulevard Silverman discussions going forward, as well as other things, the nuances between open space and conservation easement are of direct import. So since there was confusion, at least for me, about what actually went on the 30 acres and how we actually ultimately got to 10.413 acres of conservation easement, how that was actually independent of the 40% that was discussed about open space initially. Just to kind of walk through that and just clarify once and for all for everybody what open space is, what the common open space is, what the conservation easement is, and just break down again the 30 acres briefly if you would. And that again goes back to the email exchange we've had over the last 3 months, which Mr. Rushke clarified very succinctly there a few days ago. So thank you on that.
Yes, no, I know, I've seen those emails, that's why I was trying to understand exactly what this request is. Okay. So let's start at the beginning. Posting the reports that were requested, that seems pretty straightforward, right? Once we have our person who's working on the website.
Yeah. We have the latest one up. I'm not sure when, they don't do an annual report, but we can go back and take a look and see what the last 5 reports were about Chatham Township.
Oh, so that's, maybe he's looking for some of the historical reports. I mean, I think it's fine, whatever, information we can get up for residents that are interested, I think that'd be great. So, yeah, if that's easy enough to get that posted, that would be great. Chatham Township Planning Board, the audio, have we ever considered doing that? Posting up the audio?
That'll probably depend on, I'll have to look in to see what our limitations are as far as volume of stuff posted on the website, because the video files that we create through Zoom are fairly large, a few gigabytes apiece. So we'll have to see if we have enough space, in order to do that, and we'd probably be limited how many we could have up at a given time. I don't think we'd be able to, kind of like how we have with the YouTube channel. I don't think we'd be able to go as far back as we do with Township Committee.
Okay.
But we can look into it.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. Again, if residents are interested in learning about what we're doing, more power to them. I'd like to have that information.
And anyone who is interested, people are free to stop by during business hours. If they just let me know in advance. If they come down with a flash drive, I can, get them a copy of the recording onto their drive.
Great. So just to repeat, Mr. LeConte, if anybody has an interest in getting the audio recordings for the planning board, because it isn't cable cast the same way, and we don't put it out via Zoom the same way this is put out. So if you have an interest, you can see Mr. LeConte and bring a flash drive. Just contact him in advance, and he can put the audio on your flash drive so you can.
And I can do both audio and video for the planning board.
We're doing Zoom. That's right.
Yeah.
We're doing Zoom.
Yeah. So usually when people stop by, I typically give them both files.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. No net increase ordinance for stormwater 2017-2020. Mr. Rushke, do you want to?
Sure. Yeah, the Great Swamp Overlay District ordinance regarding stormwater management, it always had language in it that it referenced it as no net change. And it always had the language in order to meet that standard, 80% removal of TSS was sufficient. So there is it is conflicting regarding that language of no net change versus the standard that was in the ordinance. But that was carried over into the new ordinance. 80% removal is still required as it was in the past. So I don't understand the change that's being identified.
Okay. Oak Knoll School access. I remember Mrs. Ness would answer this a lot, the questions about whether or not we were allowed access. Have you heard anything?
We are allowed access. It's a question of whether recreation needs the access. So that would be a question we would follow up with Ms. Nauta.
Yeah, because I thought I remembered Mayor Ness had said that there was some request. So I guess the question is whether or not that was successful. I think he's just trying to see if a trial run is successful. Okay, and Dixie Dale, which I appreciate, Mr. Rushke and Mr. Hoffman, you've been trying to answer these questions and a lot have gotten answered. If you can give us just a 10,000-foot tutorial for residents who didn't maybe kind of catch this information on Dixie Dale, the notion of open space versus the conservation easement, and he throws in also common open space, which I guess that one wasn't clear.
I could just say, I really have nothing more to add, Mayor, than what I responded already in my emails. And I just to emphasize that, the term open space keeps being mentioned, but it's that term is not used in the land use regulations. It's a common open space, and that is defined in the land use code. It's defined on what the obligation is on that piece of property. And so I don't have anything to add than what I've responded in the past on emails.
So there's no conservation easement, right? That was not part of the.
No, the ordinance identified that there was a minimum amount of common open space that was required. There's no reference of open space, so, trying to confuse open space and common open space, it shouldn't be a discussion,
But it's under conservation, they cannot build on it.
But the conservation easement is not required under the code. That was a requirement that was imposed by the board, independent of what they were obligated to do to meet the code requirements. The board added that additional requirement, and I can assume that it was based on the fact that they were asking for steep slope variances, and it is common for the planning board and the zoning board as a condition of approval for steep slope disturbance to put a conservation easement on those steep slopes that are remaining that are not to be disturbed. And we do typically also put conservation easements over wetlands, and so that was what was done. So to distinguish between the conservation easement and common open space, they're unrelated. They're totally independent variables that are being applied to this application. You can't mix and add them and everything. They're completely independent. And there is no requirement in the code that says you have to have so many acres of conservation easement. It's common open space that's restricted from development. And because it's a site plan, any development on that property has to go back to the planning board. They can't just put up another pool, they can't put up another building without going back to the planning board. So the town has, would regulate any additional any development on that property. And the code does require that the open space be deed restricted, and that's typically done with the association, the deeds associated with that, and that has not been submitted yet. And so they have not submitted the supplicant information that would ultimately deed restrict the common open space to be used by those residents and what they can and can't do within that open space. So again, I think the confusion is that open space and common open space, the term should not be used together. It's common open space. Again, that's what's in the ordinance. That's what's defined in the ordinance. And conservation easement is not even referenced in the code for this zone. It was something that was imposed by the planning board, and it's independent of it's two separate issues. They should not be added or subtracted or whatever. It's just common open space, and they met that requirement in the code. The code was a minimum of 40%, and I believe it was almost 76% is what they identified as common open space. So they far exceeded their requirement. Not that I'm defending them, I'm just stating the facts.
This last question, we're being asked at a township committee meeting to explain the actions of the planning board on a specific application that took over a year. And that's unfair to the engineer. This is something that went before the planning board. There was specific votes, there was specific discussion about it, and the follow-up action for it is at the planning board. It's not here at the township committee. It's not part of public comment. This is something that's specific for Dixie-Dale, and it needs to stay there. If there's a question about it, Mr. Carr has the opportunity to come in and to listen to the minutes or to read the documents, but this is not something that can be explained in 5 minutes.
Right. He has the option to go to the planning board meeting as a member of the public, right?
Well, he can, but his question has to do with votes that took place at the planning board, with actions that the planning board authorized. So there's documents that are here in the municipal building that he is welcome to take a look at, and that's what should happen.
Yeah, no, I appreciate both of you providing clarity around this because it is very confusing. It was confusing back then, and unfortunately, the planning board doesn't have a public hearing portion unless it's specific to an application. So in terms of residents trying to understand, you know, just this little piece of dialogue is helping to provide some clarity to me because even in the back and forth emails, I didn't catch this common open space versus conservation easement versus deed restriction, and I'm on the planning board. So I know sitting in the audience back then, it was very confusing. So I do appreciate you taking the time to explain and Mr. Carr's persistence in trying to get this all sorted out.
We want to provide them with the answers, but it's just, there's specific documents that need to be looked at.
Okay. Okay, do we have anybody else? Wonderful. Seeing no one else, I will close the public hearing. Where are we? Okay. We have public hearing final adoption of ordinance 2021-19. Mr. LaConte?
Ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, New Jersey, amending the Land Development Ordinance, Section 30-78.1 to permit firehouses and emergency squad buildings as principal permitted uses in residential zones.
Thank you. Mr. Hoffman, did you want to give a brief explanation?
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. This was an ordinance that was introduced at a previous Township Committee meeting. At the October 4th Planning Board meeting, the ordinance was reviewed for consistency with the master plan. The ordinance was deemed to be consistent. This ordinance, it was not inconsistent, yes, sorry. Thank you very much. It is not inconsistent with the master plan. So it's now here for a public hearing. This ordinance would allow our emergency services, our volunteer emergency services, both fire departments, the Chatham Township Volunteer Fire Department and the Green Village Fire Department, as well as the emergency squad of the Chathams, to in the future when they need to make improvements to their buildings, to come to the planning board for site plan approval. And what it does is it eliminates specific Class D bulk variances that they would have to go to at the zoning board, which would be more cumbersome and would cost them more money. And these are our volunteer organizations, and we're doing this in the effort to help support them because we know all of our buildings age. There's new mandates, new laws, new guidelines that they have to follow. So whether it's putting in a room for decontamination so they could put washing machines there for the fire department's gear as well as the ambulance corps' gear, that kind of thing. This ordinance will help them, and it will help streamline the process. So when they do have to come to a board, they can come to the board. We can make sure that they're complying with the code, but we can help them make improvements, and we can do it so that it will not take as long if they had to go for individual variances, and help them continue to serve our needs.
Thank you. So I guess I'll open the public hearing, would be the next step specific to this ordinance 2021-19. If anybody wants to speak via Zoom, you can raise your hand. Via phone, you could press *9, I think, *9, or here. Okay, I don't see anyone. Seeing no one, we will close the hearing for this ordinance. Do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-19?
So
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, let's go for a vote.
Mrs. Fleece?
Yes.
Mrs. Fundaco? Yes. Deputy Mayor Abbott?
yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. We're going to introduce two ordinances this evening. Ordinance 21-23. Unless Mr. LaConte, did you want to read that resolution, that ordinance, please?
This is an ordinance of the Township of Chatham authorizing the acceptance of a quitclaim deed from Harvco Construction Company for Lot 8.12, Block 35, as shown on a certain map entitled Rolling Hill Company, Final Plat, Rolling Hill Vistas, recorded with the Morris County Clerk on December 18th, 1995, as map number 5207 for a detention basin. And before we move forward, Mr. Cruz, was this an item that one of our committee members had to recuse on?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you clearly.
Was this an item that one of our committee members needed to recuse on?
Yes, it is related to the Rolling Hills development. And I believe when that originally came before the Township Committee, Mrs. Felice recused herself with respect to that matter because she resides at Candace Lane.
Okay. Mr. Hoffman, do you want to give, or should I have Mr. Ruski give a brief?
Yeah, you can have Mr. Rushke do this. This is just to accept the detention pond, but he can give a better explanation.
Mr. Rushki?
The Township accepting this detention basin was required by the original Planning Board approval. As you know from the settlement earlier this year, for a variety of reasons, it took a long time for a series of developments to be finalized. They were finalized as a result of that settlement, and the settlement agreement reconfirmed the Township's obligation to take over that detention basin. So it's really something that dates back for at least 20 years, originally required by the Planning Board and reaffirmed, as I said, by the settlement of earlier this year.
Okay. Will this have to go to the Planning Board?
No, this is not a zoning ordinance. This is under the local lands and buildings law, which is how a municipality acquires interest in property, whether it's a fee interest or an easement.
Okay.
So the short answer is no.
Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, well, let's, I need a motion to introduce the ordinance first. We need a motion and a second before we can discuss. I didn't get a motion, so you're the first. Can I get a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, yes, what's your question?
So we are taking, as a township, possession of this detention basin. And that means we are maintaining, I mean, we have to.
And we have been maintaining it.
Okay, that's what I want to know. The maintenance of all stormwater, structures is, I guess, defined always differently, or maybe had been defined differently by the planning board over years. So we had been maintaining it anyway, but we didn't have to, or we always thought we had to.
We didn't have to, but it wasn't being maintained, so it had to be done for the health, welfare, and safety of our residents to make sure the water flows. So.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Great, so this is the introduction. There will be a public hearing and a final vote to adopt the ordinance. Let's move to a vote.
Mrs. Fondacco?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Abbott?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Okay, since we don't need to send it to the planning board, then the public hearing will be on October 28th.
Great. And now ordinance 2021-24. This one's Mr. Rushki.
And this is the one that will need to go to the planning board. This is an ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending building coverage ordinance, section 30-78.11B, to include projections that increase the floor area of the principal structure.
Great. Mr. Rushki, I think this one is yours. Can you just give a brief description of this ordinance?
Yeah, sure. This is, I guess I can just first just state that the development patterns in town when the properties are torn down, rebuilt, the developers typically come in and they max out the building coverage that's permitted on the lot. They also typically max out the side yard setbacks and construct to the front yard setback. And so, usually the developer is approaching this from the maximum extent of what they can build on the property. And we recently are seeing a pattern of developers coming forward and actually creating a cantilever off the primary foundation into the rear, where the cantilever is only a foot off the ground, but they're increasing the size of the structure a foot, 18 inches, almost 2 feet of additional floor area, and kind of finding a loophole regarding our definition of how we calculate building coverage. We calculate the building coverage, what's under, which makes up the foundation itself. And that's typical because you construct the walls and on top, aligned with the foundation, but they're starting to misalign the foundation with the floor area of the structure. So in order to address that concern that the buildings are actually getting larger than what they're permitted, we're just adding, frankly, the last sentence on that definition, so that if the projection increases the floor area, the principal structure, it's going to be included in the building coverage. So this ordinance is not precluding or discouraging putting the eaves and bay windows and balconies and other things that we currently permit and not include in the building coverage. It's just architectural treatment. But to do a cantilever off the foundation for the sole purpose of increasing the building coverage, which ultimately increased the mass of the house, it was not the intent of that definition. So this is just basically keeping the house to the foundation and not having these unusual cantilevers situations.
Great, thank you. Can I get a motion to introduce this ordinance 2021-24? Okay. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question. Just on, and it says it's going to take effect immediately. Is that, I'm assuming it applies to all existing applications in front of the zoning boards and planning boards?
It affects any new applications that are submitted.
Okay.
Because it's not retroactive. We can't retroactively apply.
Right, I wouldn't want.
Already got, if someone got their building permit, they're permitted to move forward.
Okay.
And when it says immediately, typically an ordinance would only go into effect after publication of the notice of final adoption. So whenever we adopt, or the committee adopts, there's still an extra week before it would be in effect.
Okay, because my only thing was I just don't want to create any type of undue hardship on people who have already submitted or in the process of submitting, and they're already spending all our money trying to make sure that they comply with our existing ordinance that we have in place. That's my only concern.
Madam Mayor, New Jersey follows a time of application rule. So if an ordinance is in effect at the time you make your application at either the Board of Adjustment or the Planning Board, then the ordinance does apply. So it's a time of application. So if there's a pending application, the ordinance would not apply. And as Mr. Rushke says, if there's a new application filed after the effective date of the ordinance, then obviously the ordinance applies.
Okay, so it would just be for all brand new applications. Okay.
Future.
Yeah, perfect. That's what I wanted to clear up.
Great. Okay, any other questions? Any other discussion? Wonderful. Can we get a vote?
Yes, Mrs. Felice?
Yes.
Mrs. Swindako?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Abbott?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
And public hearing will be on November the 18th, since it has to go to the planning board.
Great, thank you.
And I'll have had at least 3 meetings between now and then.
Okay. Wonderful. So we're on to the consent agenda. Mr. LeConte, when you are ready.
I apologize for the length of the list. Resolution 2021-247, payment of bills. 2021-248, approving meeting minutes. 2021-249, approving executive session minutes. 2021-250, appointing confidential administrative assistant payroll clerk. 2021-251, adopting revised employee handbook. 2021-252, renewal of senior center lease. 2021-253, colony pool refunds. 2021-254, outside lien redemption. 2021-255, renewing membership in the Morris County Co-op. 2021-256, appointing technical assistant. 2021-257, appointing administrative assistant. 2021-258, awarding contract to Denville Line Painting. And 2021-259, appointing member to Affordable Housing Committee.
Great. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please. Vote.
Mrs. Felice?
Yes.
Mrs. Swindako?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Abbott?
Yes.
Mayor Ewald?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Wonderful. So we are on to discussions. If no one objects, poor Mr. Farno has been sitting there the entire meeting. I would like to move up the Longwood Avenue parking discussion, if that's okay with everybody?
Yep.
Great. Okay, Longwood Avenue. Do we want to bring in Chief Miller so he can let us know? Okay. Hi, Chief.
You're muted.
Hi, Mayor, how are you?
Good, good. So Longwood Avenue, I know the police department has looked at this for a long time. The parking around the school comes up a lot. Yeah, so can you give us your thoughts? Have you looked at it more closely recently?
I do agree with, and I apologize, I didn't get his name because I'm having some audio issues. I do agree that there's a problem. I do not agree that it's not going to be moved to another street if we limit parking further. I think without a doubt it's going to move to Delwood, Buttonwood. We've already seen that trend in the past, and I think it's going to happen again.
Delwood, I'm trying to think of which ones were Delwood,
I got
Buttonwood,
pull
yeah.
up on that.
Yeah,
Delwood's
Delwood's behind the school. I'm surprised it's not on Delwood already.
So if the,
Sorry.
Delwood has a similar ordinance, no parking 7 to 10.
Okay.
The northbound side, I believe, and Buttonwood has for the entire to the street, no parking 7:30 to 10.
so if they were, if those streets were also added to 1 o'clock, that would eliminate, that wouldn't send additional parking to those streets? It would, in your opinion, that keep it at Colony Pool?
There's several streets that have the same parking ordinance, the 7 to 10. So I think it may be prudent to move them all to 1 o'clock if we're going to move one.
Yeah.
Are the other streets the same where one side is no parking and the other side is 9 to 1? Or 7 to 1?
Some are. I just have a brief list here. I don't have them all. Lenape Trail, the northbound side has it, 7 to 10. Lafayette Avenue, northbound from Floral to Spring Street. Maple Street is 8 to 4, obviously. Pine Street. Yeah, so all the surrounding streets have a similar ordinance to 7 to 10.
Is there a problem on those streets?
No, but the goal is not to move the goal is not to move the problem to other streets. So, so we wanted to be able to take a global look, and the chief is pointing out that it's just not Longwood. So there was a couple of other streets that I thought should be included, but there's a greater circumference. So it would probably make sense to change it from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock on the streets that will be identified by the police department, so that way it solves the problem.
So
Right.
all of those, like Longwood, as well as Delwood, and whatever the other ones?
Yes, Delwood has the restriction,
Okay.
Longwood, Maple Street, Pine Street, School Avenue.
Maple, okay.
And Mr. Forno
And this is
touched on this as well, because, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mr. Forno touched on this earlier during his comments, that I think it was about 4 years ago, the committee updated parking regulations on Maple and Floral due to high school parking, and the committee listened to the residents and made parking restrictions different from what they had been, which was effective as far as I know for those streets, but it wound up inadvertently shifting some of the problem over to Longwood now that they have the open campus policy, which is why Chief and Mr. Hoffman have suggested taking that global approach to make sure that we address everything all at one time, rather than just shift it from one street to another.
And it seems if no parking is extended to 1 o'clock, if the ordinance is amended so that there's no parking until 1 o'clock, that means that the students will be able to park at Colony Pool, and there's no incentive to move their cars closer to the high school.
So you said 10 to 1. We would change it from 7 to 10 to 10 to 1? I mean, because that would work too, because if they can't be there they're not going to park at 8 in the morning if they can't be there at 10, from 10 to 1.
Yeah.
I think the 7 a.m. is in place because they would park there before school.
Right.
Got it.
Colony.
So I'm just trying to clarify one thing. So you're suggesting that we have a uniform policy for all the surrounding streets?
That's what I'm suggesting.
Best?
Okay.
Yes.
I'm not trying to pin you.
Yeah.
Just trying to clarify.
I'm suggesting that there be a uniform policy for the end of the day so that students aren't able to move their cars closer to school when they come back from lunch.
Okay, so from 7 to 1, from on Longwood, Delwood, Maple, Pine, Floral, all the other ones that are affected?
Only during school days, yes.
During school days, yes.
Yeah, just during school days.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because the goal is help solve the problem on Longwood, but make sure it doesn't move to Delwood or Floral or any place else.
And the police department usually works with the school if there's an event,
Yes, we try to relax parking to help them out when they have a big event. Or, we'll post one side, no parking, so traffic can get through. But we always work hand in hand with the school district.
And having it those hours would also allow for, if people have friends over at night or on weekends, that way you're not interrupting that.
Yes, I'm thinking of all those Lafayette PTO meetings where people are scrambling to look for spots, but hopefully they could provide parking at the school, on school's property. Like you said, bigger events.
When it was up to 10 o'clock, it was like, 10 o'clock meeting, parents could park on those streets for occasional meeting, and now they won't be able to.
No, they won't be able to.
Yeah.
Well, it would only be till 1 p.m., I thought.
But that's when the meeting would take place, 10 o'clock.
10 in the morning?
10 to 11:15 or something.
Maybe change the meeting time to like 1.
Or have a lunch meeting at a restaurant.
Right, I'm just trying to...
That's usually with the staff of the school, that's the problem with the PTO meetings.
So maybe 1 p.m. meetings, like 1 to 3 or whatever is this. I don't know, trying to...
Yeah. That's part of having the public hearing process again, because the other thing is, Buttonwood might not want restrictions. They might not think that there'll be an overflow, so we just want to make sure to get input from those residents.
Yeah, so this is the first part. This at the beginning of the year, there was a larger than normal, amount of parking happening on Longwood, and then there were some mailboxes that were knocked down. There were people that, because the students weren't parking properly, there were people that could not have air conditioners fixed when they had appointments because the vans couldn't get into the driveway. There was mail delivery that wasn't happening because students were parking in front of the mailboxes. So it's unfortunate that we have to talk about this, but people deserve to have access to their driveways. They deserve to get their mail, and they deserve to have a quality of life. So.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I guess what I would recommend is the next step is that there appears to be a consensus to look at this and to change the time to 1 o'clock. The chief and I will meet sometime next week, and we'll go through this, and then perhaps at the next meeting we can have we can have an ordinance ready for introduction that would, or the amendment to the ordinance just to change it on the streets that need to have it changed, and the main change would be no parking until 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Okay,
I'm fine with that.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bruno.
Thank you for your attention to it. I hope I don't have to come back 25 years from now. I hope I'm still alive.
I hope you're still driving.
Oh, yeah, that's the problem, you know.
All right.
I don't give up that much at night anymore, that's the...
Okay.
No, I do.
Well, thank you for hanging in there, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Chief, any other words of wisdom?
Not tonight.
Okay.
And thank you for hanging in there, Chief.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too, good night.
As an aside, Bob, that old ordinance has all those other streets listed.
It does.
Yeah, it's already there, so you just have to change that ordinance to 1 PM.
Oh, okay.
It has them all there so that nobody can park, and the closest place would be Colony Pool Club.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and-
96?
What?
You said it was 96?
Yeah, I have a copy of the ordinance if you want to see it.
But at least if I know what you're doing.
It's ordinance 96-18. So we have it here, and it's got all of it listed, all of
Wow,
the streets and times.
So I don't do it again. Okay, thank you.
thank you. Okay, the joint court agreement.
All right, this is just the, there's a resolution that's scheduled to, that's on the agenda, Resolution 2021-260. The joint court agreement is up. Our committee had met, and it was recommended for renewal. The reason we had it under discussion instead of consent is that 2 other municipalities asked for changes in the language. So one of them, it was chairman to chairperson. I think that was one of the changes, and then then there was another community that wanted an additional year in it. So we had been talking about 3 years, and then other towns that were involved wanted the 4 years, but there's still the same out clause.
Okay.
Notice. So
As long as there's the same out
yeah.
clause, I'm okay.
Yeah, it's the same out clause, but that's the reason why it wasn't on consent, because 2 other municipalities had asked for changes, and we had our meeting before that, and then so the emails went out to us about the changes, but
Okay. Great. Inflow and infiltration study, next phase.
Madam Mayor, before you go on to that, just one point regarding the joint municipal court agreement. Once you adopt that resolution, it doesn't take effect until January 1, because that's the new court year. However, at the November 18th meeting, there will be an ordinance to be introduced, which basically conforms with the agreement as it now stands. So you'll be asked to take that action tonight, and then on November 18th, introduce an ordinance, making the ordinance conform with the agreement.
Yes, we're not taking any action tonight.
I'm sorry, well, then, when do you propose to take action on that, tonight?
we're passing the.
There is a resolution.
No,
It's in your packet. It was in your packet all along.
But after discussion, we're going to ask that it be adopted. So there's discussion, then it's resolution
260.
260. And
Oh, I'm
there's-
looking at,
And then the inflow and infiltration would be resolution 261. That's what we're talking
Yeah, the
about.
resolution didn't have a number till today, but it was in your electronic packet on
Okay.
Friday and again Tuesday.
I know we've been talking about this, for forever, and I'm totally comfortable. I just don't have it on the 261. I don't have it on this latest packet you gave us.
Yeah, I have it in the packet, at the end of the packet.
It's not on the agenda.
No.
When something's on for discussion, we specifically have possible ordinance or resolution to indicate that there may be action taken. That's
Okay.
why the resolution was in the packet, because
Okay, hey, I'd love to get this done with now. Okay. So what is the next step? You'll read the resolution then?
yes.
And then we'll have an introduction? Okay.
Yep,
So we don't have to see this anymore?
correct.
Okay.
Resolution 2021-260, authorizing the mayor and township clerk to execute an agreement for the participation in the joint municipal court of Madison Borough, Chatham Borough, and Chatham Township and Morris Township pursuant to the Uniform Shared Services and Consolidation Act for a 4-year period beginning January 1st, 2022 and expiring December 31st, 2025.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to introduce?
So moved.
No, adopt.
Adopt.
To adopt, okay.
Moved.
Committeewoman, please.
Second, do we have a second? Second. Okay, and I don't think we have any discussion, right? We're all full of our joint court agreement?
Yes.
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 Deputy Mayor Abbott?
Yes.
And Mayor Ewald.
Yes,
Motion passes.
wonderful.
And just so we're clear, we also have a resolution for the inflow and infiltration, once you have that discussion.
Okay. Inflow and infiltration, next phase.
Yes, Madam Mayor, this relates to the township's initial study of the inflow and infiltration of the water stormwater getting into our sanitary sewer system. So an initial study had been done. The study identified 6 areas in the township where there was a significant amount of stormwater that was getting into our system. They were identified in a report that Mott McDonald had done. The Township Committee had the summary of it where those 6 locations were. This next phase is to take a look specifically at those 6 locations, to have people go out and do some field work. It's approximately 2 days of field work, and then to come back with recommendations on how do we solve the problems there, because that seems to be where we have the most water getting into our system. So we wanted to be surgical. We wanted to find out where we had where the apparent most volume of water was coming in, assess it, and then figure out how to solve it. So this is the assessment part. What is it that we actually have to do? So our engineer can give us a little more input if you want. He has volunteered to put on a wetsuit in November and to specifically look in some of the larger pipes.
We'll get enough oil, John.
Yeah, ultimately, our objective is to find out where water is infiltrating into the sewers and come up with the appropriate corrective action to eliminate it. And that's our goal fundamentally. And unfortunately, when you look at the miles of pipe that we have in the ground, sometimes you can almost feel like you're finding a needle in a haystack. So, we go through a systematic process of trying to break the sewer system down into individual networks, and that was the first phase, was to just install flow meters and determine where where substantial infiltration is occurring. So we kind of brought the entire town down into 6 very distinct areas. And, the intent of these investigations, you're never the system's always going to leak. You're always going to have some type of infiltration, and it's not practical to have an objective to eliminate everyone. But you go after the more substantial infiltration and leaks that you have, and usually that results in a very drastic improvement in what you see at the plant. And again, it's just a systematic process. So we went through the process of installing the flow meters. The next process is that we'll go out again during a storm event, because if we want to find infiltration coming in from storm events, you got to go out when it rains. And so that's what kind of delays this process a bit, because you don't want to go after a short storm. You want to go something that's going to be soaking the ground, and so you can actually find where the water is coming in. And the next step is they'll go in each one of these little districts. They'll open up the manholes and try to see which pipe runs in fact are seeing, you can visually see where more substantial flow is coming in. And then again, it's just another systematic approach, is once we identify from these larger areas which actual pipe runs, then in fact we'll do, different techniques of actually video the inspection, video the pipe itself, or do smoke testing or other techniques in order to find where to pinpoint the exact leak. It'd be extremely expensive and non-productive if we just said, okay, let's just video every single pipe in town. It'd be extremely expensive and it's not productive. You really just want to video those sections which are suspect of being problematic. And then once we find the leaks, then there's other techniques that we will come up with, either in situ grouting, or sometimes you have to do lining, or even the extreme of replacing sections of pipe. But that we'll get to that point once we assess, once we identify the leaks and the characterization of the leaks, and we'll come up with a corrective action.
And that's why you see in there that it does talk about videoing, because John didn't want to wear a wetsuit, so we are going to video.
And most of the pipes are only 8 inches, so I just can't squeeze into them.
Okay, so discussion. I guess unless we want to go ahead with a resolution. I'm fine with, let's just do the resolution, please.
Well, John, when did you find the 6 areas? Was that already a couple of years ago, or?
No, that was earlier this
No,
year.
Earlier this year, okay.
Yeah, we just completed that phase. And so this is the next phase to investigate those, because you have to do in phases. If I do a projection on how much the effort's going to be, 6 could have actually been 8, or it could have been 2. So, we're just doing it systematically so that, we're just incrementally and ultimately to save cost. We don't want to over-investigate that. We want to try to pin this down as quickly as possible and find the leaks as quickly as possible, so then we can correct them.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Mr. LeConte, do you want to read the resolution?
Resolution of the Township of Chatham authorizing the Phase 2 study of the sanitary sewer collection system to identify areas that may require repair and rehabilitation.
Great. Do we have an ordinance to introduce?
Motion to introduce.
Motion to introduce, I know, I'm sorry.
Motion to adopt.
Motion to adopt the resolution.
It's late.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion, any other questions? No. Okay, vote please.
Mrs. Felice.
Yes.
Mrs. Swindocko.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Abbott.
Yes.
And Mayor Ewell.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, and we'll have our final hearing of citizens. The same rules apply. I will open up the hearing of citizens. Anyone on Zoom? Seeing no one, we'll close the hearing of citizens. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all. Thank you for your patience.
Good night, thank you.
Everybody.
Good night.